And I forgot that.
And you forgot to put us on stage. Oh, hello everybody.
I was so focused on other things than I. Yeah.
Let me
Hello.
turn on the fan.
There we are.
There we go. Okay. Michael Blois, hello on Substack. We have a few people watching in on your Twitch and on YouTube. Hello to you as well. Please introduce yourself. Where are you tuning in from? Let us know. Are you excited about AI topics? What GPTs are you using? What agent?
What is this AI?
platforms?
What is this?
It's just a bunch of numbers.
Yeah, isn't it this autocompleter thing?
Hang on. What is it focusing? Is it focusing the reflection in the back? Yeah. It's focusing the reflection in the back. It's that time of day. There we go.
I wait for the day when you basically turn off the very bright light in the background and make that you have a light in front of you instead.
Let's see.
Someday.
Yeah. It's nice weather outside.
Yeah, it becomes the better season again. So,
yeah.
I need to go more outside riding bike too.
My kids are outside playing on the playground, so they'll come up at some point. So I'll have to open the door. But until then, we're good.
So AI topics are so interesting right now because we have plenty of them going on.
Yeah.
And I really mean on every platform. It is not a little bit like hey, we have a niche in coding or a niche in writing. It is everywhere. It is even in the household. So my wife recently got ChatGPT. My neighbors got it, and they use it for basically everything, right? Me including, right? So I can't imagine to go back to the time without it, even though I could probably, but it wouldn't feel effective anymore, because you have, or let's say efficient, because efficiency is, improved or has improved a lot. And I couldn't imagine to go in any way back to where I was before because I got used to how fast I can go through text, how fast I can read contracts, how fast I can write code these days, how fast I can review entire code bases, those kind of things. It is still a little bit expensive. So what has raised as well is the bill per month, right? So it's not like just having your little ChatGPT bill for $20 or even free version. Now you have at least, so for me personally, it's going close to $100 a month, I would say. When I take into consideration what happens in the business, I would even go triple or two times or triple that number just for my personal usage. That is the downside. So AI is quite expensive, but it saves you a lot of time. So if it's, if you're time concerned, if you're time bound, it is actually
if you're using it in a smart way. If you're using it in a smart way.
Yes.
Yes.
And many people, especially in the coding area, still say that AI, doing 10 minutes of AI, 10 years of debugging. Well, probably a joke, an extreme one, and there is a true core in that, but it is with modern tools not necessary anymore to think that way. So you can actually do something pretty effective with AI in coding, in even editing videos. So for example, Descript does have a built-in AI. It's called, I forgot how it's called. Never mind. But you can basically
Overlord. Is it Overlord?
Underlord. It's
Underlord. Yeah,
Exactly,
there we
under
go.
load.
Yeah, that's
And
the one.
you can basically have a multi screen setup, and then really
Yeah.
say, make something out of that multi screen setup. Please go through the entire 1.5 hours, and take AI to make the best cuts to show the right person, um,
Yeah.
and basically then say, get me some clips out of that, and it really thinks about how to make those clips. You can of course do that all yourself, but I know how it is to make those things yourself, and it takes a huge amount of time to do those kind of things, right? And if you do that with those tools, you save a lot, and you can focus more on what you actually want to do, or do things you want to do. And I think that's a good topic for today. What we will do today is we will talk openly about what we use and why we use it and where we use it. So we don't have a problem to name those kind of things. I don't
Yeah.
have a problem about that, because, especially when it comes to writing, because I do write a lot myself, but not most these days, because many things are like those event descriptions, those descriptions in general, those small things, those
Algorithmic
large
stuff,
sum ups,
essentially.
those, I
Yeah.
can't, my time, sorry to say, that isn't worth it to write those kind of things. No one pays me for that,
And
and
nobody
no
reads
one
it
really
either.
reads
So
that. So,
yeah.
it's a little bit like people often complain, especially in the Substack area, people complain that many people use AI to write things lately.
I mean,
I
look,
have,
you can
I,
use AI to write badly, and you can use AI to write well. Like, it's not, the best writers will be the writers who use AI. The good writers who use AI well, like, those will dominate the scene. There's a lot of cheap AI
I
writing.
like the idea of good writers, so I don't see myself as a writer in any way. That's not. I am a person who have ideas and I want to express those ideas, but I'm not a writer. So I don't earn my money with writing. But there are on Substack and Medium so many writers who write interesting articles, interesting memos, interesting little stories, which when I read them, I'm in those stories. They are extremely well written. And that
Yeah.
is an art by itself. That is not what I do, right? So I have my ideas, and I need to transport my ideas to other people outside of my own office here, right? And so AI does help me a lot to do that in form of video, image creation, text creation, even code, right? Thinking about things, getting to topics, understanding topics. So I told that everybody. That's an interesting part as well. When I ride bike, I very often talk to an AI. So it's about 40 minutes one way. So I have a little bit over 1.5 hours of time each day where I can either listen to Audible, right? Some interesting books or something like that, or I can talk or phone to ChatGPT, which I do very often in the advanced voice mode. And that is very interesting because the advanced voice mode really is a reflective tool. So it reflects and researches for you, and you really can, discuss your ideas and get to a point you understand. You have someone to reflect an idea who does deeply understand the technical topic behind things, or the psychological topic, or something like that. Those relations, those habits, maybe those fallacies behind
Yeah,
those kind of things.
I haven't explored it much yet, but
It's great. It is
I'm on the
totally great.
I'm on the plus plan right now, so it's just a time thing. Like, I will get to it, but I need to prioritize.
Yeah. Maybe on some point in time we can invite ChatGPT to the show as a third participant.
I don't think that's gonna be too interesting.
I actually, as I said, I use it very often, and it helped me a lot. So that's one of the reasons I actually haven't gone away from ChatGPT as my main client.
Yeah,
But
same.
I don't use it for coding
And
anymore.
it's very cost efficient. Like, ChatGPT, like being the biggest one, they have the most modern general models, like foundational models, and their model is very good for what it costs. But it has to be general purpose, right? Otherwise, I fall into this trap, with similar to the streaming services of you're paying for one model for one thing and another model for another thing, and then it's just,
You don't
there
need
are
that.
those issues.
Yeah.
There are those issues as well. So for those of you who don't know, let's do some terminology first. So a GPT is a chatbot essentially.
Mhm.
A GPT is a chatbot. You probably also hear the term Gen AI, right? So generative AI being used for GPTs. The purpose is you basically create text. The text represents a dialogue. You fill in your part. The GPT completes its part. Usually it's question and answer, but it can also be command, instruction. It can also be observation, refinement, etc. Desley, hello. Welcome to Substack. We're just going through the basic terminology for AIs or GPTs primarily. So that's a GPT.
Mhm.
Then there's agents. Nowadays I'm being spammed by people talking about agentic AIs, and
Mhm.
I have a feeling the audience either doesn't know what that means or it's just like a sexy word that nobody really
I
knows
know
how
it
to
from
explain.
agentic coding, not from agentic AI.
So the point about agentic AIs are GPTs that you have empowered with access to something. So it's not necessarily a RAG. A RAG is see, I know what a RAG is, but I don't know what the acronym stands for. That's silly. So RAG,
A piece of tissue.
yes. So RAG is a retrieval augmented generation. So a RAG is a GPT that has access to read something. Imagine it like you have a database, and the database has data,
Mhm.
and it's like an SQL database, and it has an index. So it makes it easier to find certain things very quickly without loading all of the data from disk into your CPU. So how a RAG works for a GPT is that a GPT's token space might be limited. That's one problem that RAGs solve. Another problem that RAGs solve is that maybe you want to have a conversation with the AI about something very private, and the AI was never trained on your private data. It can only infer if you use your private data as input. So what you can do is you can give the GPT access to either some extracted data or some wiki, or generally it would be like text files or a data vector database that has either a different inference model or a security model or just
Mhm.
text files that they can index and quickly find, so that when you're having a conversation, every now and then it'll check if there's like within your augmented text set that you have provided, if there's anything interesting relevant to the conversation, and then it'll keep track of which text pieces were relevant, which weren't. It might even tell you, hey, in order to answer, I have read that file. So these might be, for example, you might have in Meditech, you might have a RAG regarding patient data, and it'll tell you, hey, I have accessed this patient's file in order to answer this question. It's not part of my fundamental model. I cannot leak this, but I have reasoned with it. I have pulled it into my context space. That's a RAG. So generally it is like a multi-DB GPT. It has access to its public training data that it infers from, and then it has access to documents that you give it that can change over time, or you can just have it there to index it, or it can learn from it, or it can put some extra information into that so that it can recall it later. Claude, for example, is sort of working like that as well. So that's a RAG. Now an agent also has access to things, but usually it has a much higher, it's much more sophisticated level of access. So an agent is sort of like a RAG. So there's the token space and it can reason, but it's rather than using the token space to think, it is using the thing that has access to communicate. So a RAG generally only has conversations with you. a agent will also have a conversation with something that's running on your machine or in the cloud, if the agent is running in the cloud, right? So for example, Descript is an agent, right? The Underlord, the AI of Descript, it has access to my conversation and it has access to the video. So when the video is being transcribed, the transcription itself is talking to the AI, the GPT, and then the AI is sort of pre-prompted to say, okay, when the transcription is ready, give me some suggestions or generate 9 clips as a starting point, or like tell me, oh, this looks like a podcast. Do you want me to X, Y, and Z, right? So the difference between a RAG and an agent would be that the agent is also having like a conversation in the background with the things that you gave it access to. And then there are multi-agent clients where there might be multiple of these conversations running in parallel, multiple inference models or different types of inference models. So a Descript RAG, a Descript agent that is talking to a ChatGPT agent, and he's handling voice, he's transcribing it. Then there's another one that puts it into Notion. But generally, when we talk about agents, 90% of the time, it's usually some kind of cloud service where we're really talking about a RAG where the GPT has access to whatever that product is. So for example, I have Descript. The Descript has an agent. Like it is agentic in the context of it has access to my videos. Notion has an AI. It is an agent because it has access to my documents. ChatGPT is an agent, oddly enough, when you're running it in advanced voice mode, when you're running it in canvas mode, right? So when you're running it in canvas mode, you will notice, like, I think the canvas mode is the most easiest to describe, because canvas mode is basically, I have a conversation with it, and then together we are producing a document, and the document in itself is also a conversation. So I can prompt it to do something, or I can just edit the text. So we have like 2 simultaneous conversations going on. If I prompt it, it might change the text, or if I'm just changing the text, it might reason something without me changing it. Generally, the more advanced copilots, so Copilot X, Claude, etc., are also different kinds of agents where sometimes it just thinks. You don't have to prompt it. You just write code and it thinks. For example, if you're using the IntelliJ AI tool, it will just automatically think and reason for you when you're about to write a commit message using the visual Git integration, right? So you say this file, this file, this file, this file, and then the agent in the background spins up and says, okay, let me write a Git. Like, let me at least, the placeholder for the Git commit message, let me make that like a reasonable AI suggestion. Sandra, hello. Robin, welcome. Welcome back. I'm seeing regulars on Substack, so that's always lovely. It's a new generation of OTJ fans.
Yeah, my Substack stream isn't working right now. That's unfortunate.
Did you ask for it to be enabled and then something?
But they never answer me. That's a little bit annoying.
Would you disagree with anything that I just described, Adrian? Did I miss anything obvious?
No, that was a extended version of what a GPT and an agent is, but it was very interesting, and will probably be a good topic and clip of its own to publish. Now, that's actually right. Now we need to really transition to how we actually use it, right?
Yeah.
So, you said that this is the agentic terminology which came now lately, and that is the interesting part. I think it's not really the interesting part, but how do people actually see it and how they use it. So as far as I can see, in the last 1.5 or 2 months, I think the usage of AI raised a lot, and more people admitting that they use it. Because before that, there was some form of shame factor, like, hey, use AI. Can't you do
it was
things
also
yourself?
low quality, right? So it was also low quality. The output was very low quality, so it was also considered lazy.
Well, it is still considered lazy to use AI, and the AI itself is lazy as well. So that's the human is lazy and the AI was lazy. These days, especially when you think that I have a ChatGPT
Mhm.
thing, I have a first version of Cloud Chat, and then I put a thing inside there, and I take the output, I copy paste it, I just use it, and so that's the thing which most people blame, or especially when it
Mhm.
comes to software development. But
Mhm.
then nearly 3 weeks ago, for me, first time I really realized what those AI engineers actually are. So there were Cursor and Windsurf and these kind of things
Yeah.
before, but they weren't really working. There was Devin before, which was a flop, right? Then
Devin was a
the
scam, I believe. Like it was human operated partially in the demo, so it couldn't do what was demoed.
possibly, but it
And
was a preview of what is to come, right? And then Windsurf, Cursor, they
yeah, yeah,
proved they
yeah.
can do that,
Like
and
what Claude can do today. Basically, Claude launched what Devin was faking as a scam, but the difference was only 6 months. So you know, it's a shame that they've ruined their own reputation because they only needed to wait 6 months and they could have white labeled the Devon as like a cloud wrapper. But they've destroyed the company in the process, sadly.
yeah, anyway, it was like for let's maybe pick some parts like for let's say writing, video editing, and coding and general purpose, and start with coding because I think that's the most familiar topic with most people we have here. And when I used Claude Code the first time, I was totally stunned about what actually happened there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, I was really looking for the flaws. Everyone is talking about that AI cannot actually do this, and I saw it can do this. So
Mm-hmm.
there was this conflict in my head because a big part of me don't want to believe that AI can actually do this because,
Mm-hmm.
well, I've done that now for so many years, more than 3 decades. I'm
Mm-hmm.
programming actually.
Mm-hmm.
I'm old, right? I have a lot of gray hairs here already. And now this machine comes and does it maybe probably much faster, understand things faster than me, and
Yeah.
executes faster. What it doesn't do is understand everything outside of the code base and the ideas
Correct.
why. So that
Correct.
there is still a big lack even in most things even not existing. So what it
Mm-hmm.
really is, it's not a substitute for us developers. It changes how we developers work, how we engineer. So we become more engineers. Since I use it, and I use it basically every day. Since then there was literally no day because I was working on weekends as well. There was literally no day I wasn't using Claude Code. So the actual client, right, which is probably with a rack connected to my node, to my test, so it could see the test
Mm-hmm.
results, it could see the compile results, it could see everything basically, the documentation, everything. And
Yeah.
what I saw there is a clear saving of time, and that's the first thing, and that we will change to not the person who start to type something and then in an explorative way going somehow or develop somehow to the finish line. We will try to describe the way to the finish line before we actually code. That is pretty much the same thing we should do in TDD. So TDD is already trying to do that with us, or make us do that actually. And with AI, when you're not doing that, so if you just start with the idea of I just type something, I vibe, right? I vibe in that moment and just type something down. This is crappy. That doesn't work. So this thing, and that is not important, not because of the AI. It's because of you. Because we humans, right? We have a lot of habits, we have a lot of fallacies, a lot of biases and cognitive errors, cognitive effects, those kind of things. And
Mm-hmm.
you really see that there. You don't see things. You believe that your counter AI part is understanding what you believe as a human being in that moment, which is not the case. So you read, and that's actually the same thing if you would work like that with a human being who don't know you really good, right? That's one of those things as well. So we need to learn to describe our problem in a way that others understand it. right? And that is extremely important. That is what actually changed when it came to my working. So instead of really going into a problem, try to do something with it, I actually tend to really go through all files myself. I go through the documentation myself. Sometimes I even ask Claude or another AI built in JetBrains, which is called Sonnet as well. I basically ask them, hey, where do we have this? So I basically try to get the first prompt together with the AI, and then we execute. And then I explicitly say what we do and what we not do in that moment. And I learned that the more I do, so there's a limit to that, of course, but it's basically half a page of prompt. That is what works very well for me, even in very complex code bases with a lot of complex things in it. It really understands those kind of things. And it really saves me time. It saves me, and I would say it makes me personally 30% more effective and 30% less exhausted. That is what I have the feeling. So I can work longer and I can work more, and my output is more. So I can't quantify that. I have never made research about that, but that is my feeling. And another thing is, the problem with why I think that junior developers should be careful with those kind of things is, if you cannot describe the way and the problem up front, and you don't understand what you expect, then you shouldn't use it. Point. Period. That's it, actually. And that is one of those things where I think that we should understand that we need to become these type of high-level engineers. Some people call that prompt engineers, but that is more like, yeah, you're a prompt. This is a degrading version. No, we simply stay software engineers. Do whatever you should have done already before that. And simply because you love to start to fix a problem by coding doesn't make you an engineer, right? So an engineer thinks before he or she's actually doing something. That is what engineers do. And if you want to call yourself a software engineer, then please practice that. AI is not the reason you should do that, but if you want to be effective with AI, you need to do that. And you should have done that before if you use TDD, for example. And the great thing is now, for senior developers who can do that they become way more effective, right? And very quickly used to that. But I have still a big question mark above my head in my brain how we actually bring junior developers in the next 10 years to the senior state. Because the AI can be a training instrument, but companies and people need to learn how to use it, because otherwise I will see that the seasoned senior engineers who do already these disciplined things, who work already on quality or set a quality for themselves before they actually start, they will be able to use AI effectively. But so the flow coding idea enhanced with AI, so the old idea. But the new vibe coding, and that is what I don't like, is probably something where the junior developers or developers who don't want to become the engineers will fall prone to and become trapped in these kind of methods. The problem is you really don't learn any skills which make you able to do this flow coding thing. Because flow coding, a prerequisite or a requirement, in my opinion, is definitely to be able to do that manually in case of AI is not available. And that is the big difference between flow and vibe coding. In vibe coding, you don't do that because you can't do vibe coding without an AI agent.
Well, it's
can
different.
do flow
It's
coding
different.
without
You're
AI.
you're not coding when you're vibe coding, right? So vibe coding is something different.
It's
Vibe
actually
coding
vibing.
is-
It's
It's not. You're not really coding. Like you don't. Vibe coding is meant for something else. Like it has a limit of what you can do with it, etc. But I don't want to get. I think we have an episode scheduled about vibe coding and about flow coding and TDD and AI. I don't want to go too far off topic. Hey, Stefan.
Stefan will join us a little bit later in the show. Already.
Okay. Ravi, hello. I just checked Substack. So Substack looks great on the desktop app. Unfortunately, if you're on the phone, at least on the iPhone, we are streaming in landscape mode, and the iPhone Substack app locks the video in portrait mode. So we're we're cut on the video to like half of the middle of the screen, which like there isn't anybody in the middle of the screen. So the Substack mobile experience on iPhone today, do apologize, is a bit limited. So Ravi, Sandra, if you're still with us, I do apologize. If you can watch it on YouTube or the desktop app, you will have a much better experience. I had to check. I couldn't see my own stream last time, so this is a work in progress. As always, Substack is a bit of an experiment for us. Yeah, I think
It
Stefan
actually
will join
works
us.
fine. I
So,
would like to do it as well.
yeah, the Substack URL is this, Stefan. I think this will paste it to. Yeah, it'll paste it to Twitch as well.
Just type
Sorry for
it
using your
one by one into the browser. Especially the last part is important. No, I'm joking. It's not. But he was just joining, so it worked.
Yeah, it worked. Yeah, I see him joining on Substack.
So then we
audio
have,
is fine if you're just listening, but the video is like it's like centered down and sort of cropped in the middle of the camera, so it's like cutting it off awkwardly.
Okay, but so back again. So that said, so our topic was which agents we use and why. And
so I wanted to highlight something you said regarding juniors and how to like juniors won't become seniors by using AIs.
Yeah.
If anything, it will slow them down. Right. Yeah. So one of the things that's missing is what regarding teamwork. I don't have a better word for it. This is quite bleeding edge, so I don't have a better term for it. It's a great learning tool if you're using it for learning. But if you're a junior and you're starting off, it's great for producing code. But it still requires your like deliberate attention to becoming a better engineer. It has to be voluntary. Like it won't accidentally happen just by AI usage. Now, when it comes to collaboration, right? So usually when you're a junior engineer, let's say if you're a solopreneur who's a junior engineer, there's nobody to learn from. So you just have to be very entrepreneurial in your learning journey. That's fine. But like your rate of learning and how you learn and what you learn will be extremely limited to things that you're curious about. So if you're curious about becoming a great engineer, you'll have no problems. If you're not curious about it and you're a little bit too pragmatic in creating technical debt essentially, and not really like it, if you procrastinate on the maintenance burden as a solo engineer and the only person you talk to is a rubber duck or an AI agent, then that's going to be long-term harmful for you because you can use it as a procrastination tool to avoid doing the annoying stuff. And it's very likely that if you don't know how to prompt the AI to help you with that, but I'm not gonna comment on Stefan. Like Stefan is typing to us, but if Stefan is coming
on, he said. So he's probably disagreeing because he has this is one of the reasons I wanted to have him on the show, because I know that his opinion goes in a similar direction, but several things he sees differently as far as I understand.
So what I don't have a term for is, let's say you and I are coding and there's an AI in the room and it's talking to us. We don't have a very good terminology for that, right? So ensembling with another human being and my AI and your AI are in the room. And now we have to learn, is your AI allowed to prompt mine? Is yours responding to me? Is mine responding to you, right? So like this kind of multi-agent setup, we don't have figured out because like we're not quite sure how to communicate to the AIs who to take commands from, right? Because it's a little bit too complicated. This will be a solved problem, I'm sure of it, especially if robots are coming into the scene. This will like be the main problem to solve. Like, who's the master? Who's allowed to give commands? If I have a robot in my household, are you, when you as a guest arrive into my household, are you allowed to command it to, like, it knows how to unlock the safe to clean it, but are you allowed to command it, right? So, like, if I'm only using the robot, I will never give it this order, or if I do, it implicitly has my permission, right? So we don't have that figured out yet. When that is figured out, I think juniors will skyrocket in benefit. But since that is not the case yet, the AI at the very least requires the human for authorization. And when there's multiple AIs in the room, the quality of the conversation is diminished because it's not clear from like just the social cues what the AIs should be picking up on. So, for example, when I'm on a Zoom meeting and I have my summary bot and you have your summary bot, it's not quite clear what those two bots should be doing with regards to each other. And they're not very good at picking up on it. This will be solved, but right now it's a bit clumsy. Stefan, no problem. You're coming on in a bit anyway. So I wanted to mention that first. The second thing I wanted to mention with regards to what you said regarding you were surprised by what it did. Ironically, it's not a very good coder in the sense that it is not a very good autonomous engineer. It's very good at assisting.
To which degree? Autonomy to which degree?
So it is a very good coding assistant, but it doesn't code very well autonomously, right? So it's very good at coding if there's a very competent person watching it and guiding it as it's coding, right? So Claude, for example, right? So agentic AI models are very good if there's a capable person guiding them. And if you learn how to guide them, which we can talk about before Stefan joins. But it is not very good autonomously, right? So a very good software engineer, I would expect that I don't have to babysit them so that they produce code. Right? So if I use the same lens for an AI, we're not there. We're not even close. That I would just say, yeah, like buy 5 licenses, run 5 Claudes, and I just have meetings with them. That's not happening. I have to actually actively watch them, guide them. Like, I could maybe watch several. Maybe there's like an angle to that kind of sort of flow coding, where I'm sort of watching several agents at work, and then I have multiple Claudes from multiple repos, and then there's multiple problems being solved. And really, the bottleneck is how quickly they can respond to me based on like how throttled I am on my plan for my tokens. Maybe that's something to explore. I haven't really done that yet. I haven't really had a positive use case on that, but I've seen people do that. I'm not saying, I can't comment on whether that's productive or at this point. So I'm coming at it from somebody who's, has an extreme programming background. So at the very least, I know how to, I know how to communicate, how to correct a team, let's say, right? So I know I can watch a team work, and I know how to help them and sort of what to bring their attention to. So I find it very easy to translate that into talking to an AI, and the correlation is almost 1-1. And I've had similar observations with other extreme programmers. So extreme programmers, people who pair program, engineers who do TDD, engineers who are used to running event modeling workshops, engineers who are used to running event sourcing workshops, event storming workshops, right? So any kind of conversation that helps you break down the problem, helps you plan the deliverables so that your batch sizes are minimized, so that you have constant feedback, so that there's self-testing in the process. These kinds of engineers have a huge advantage for using any kind of AI, because they learned how to sort of break up complex problems and make them simpler and make progress without requiring like a single large deliverable, right? So What doesn't work well with AI is a waterfall approach. You write an enormous prompt, you send it, and the first 5 sentences are already nonsense.
Mhm.
So an iterative approach works very well, and if you're leaning heavily into agile, you will have a lot of success with AIs. And we see this with researchers from ThoughtWorks, Martin Fowler, etc., who are very much leaning into extreme programming practices, who are very much leaning into agile, like the lowercase a agile, like the old school agile, lean agile, right? So lean for software, not the certification stuff, not the velocity and story points and pizzas and that. They are basically pioneering Gen AI usage, so GPT usage, agentic usage in all kinds of areas of software engineering.
Mhm.
And I found that if I use my engineer brain, it doesn't, like, if I pretend I'm a silly writer or amateur author and I wanted to write a really good article for me, that doesn't work. But if I think about it as like a extreme programmer, and me talking to the AI is a process, if I focus on optimizing this process, we will have huge success. And that's what I got to so far.
Mhm.
That's also what inspired me to have this conversation with you today regarding how to set this up, because ultimately you just have to learn how to how to keep the AI agile, because otherwise it will spin in circles or it will just lead you on nowhere, right? Which is exactly the same thing stakeholders experience with endless software projects. Yeah. Where do you want to take this? Is Stefan coming? You have a comment? Where do
He
you
will
want
be
to?
he will be there in a second. I'm
Mhm.
already preparing that he can join. But I'm something you said in the beginning. I'm not 100% with you saying that Cloud Code, for example, isn't capable of solving a problem itself. It actually is. That's one of my findings as well. If you give the correct boundaries, then yes, it can do that in the boundaries of the code base and your environment, but not outside of it. So as long
So
as it is
I, I,
inside
I'm
it, this
talking
actually does
about
work.
I'm talking about treating it like an engineer, right? So if you review it like you would review an engineer's work, and it can do that, sure.
Hmm.
But if you review it as this is your work and the AI is helping you, I would say no, that doesn't fit the criteria. Um, so if it's on your machine and it's asking you, hey, should I commit this now? Should I push this now? Should I open up ER? If it's asking, then it's not independent, right? You're still guiding it.
Yeah, of course.
Um,
Yeah. That's true.
you
Of
know,
course.
or if it's going down a rabbit hole, hey, should I fix this now? If it's asking you actively, and it won't do anything if you don't answer it, then it's not independent. Like the term independence is really important, right? Like it has to know what to do if you are absent. Let's say,
The Shift Tab in Cloud Code makes it independent.
yeah. Did you give Stefan
I did.
the okay? Because he's asking.
It's sorry, Stefan. Take a look in LinkedIn, please.
Okay, and please don't share that link, Stefan. That's the private, like backstage studio link.
Come on, everyone.
Yeah. So quickly, I found that just making my prompts smart, like SMART, the acronym, similar to how you would do it with like work breakdown or tickets. Just following SMART is very effective with any kind of agent work or any kind of conversation with the AI. That's one thing. SMART, for those who don't know, that's a project management acronym. It basically means that your prompts, your ask, your ticket, essentially for the AI should be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. And time bound is the most important aspect here, right? So the AI has no sense of time. has no sense of diminished resources, right? So I don't want to have a conversation for 12 hours with the AI. It doesn't know that. So I have to constantly prompt it of like, I have 15 minutes. We need to make an increment on this. I'm writing a LinkedIn post. We have 15 minutes. Use my previous prompt. Here's the agent prompt, and help me make an increment that is good under, like, with these criteria in 15 minutes. But in 15 minutes, we need to be done. Like, I need to constantly remind it. It's like, no, hang on, zoom out, rabbit hole, come back. We have 5 more minutes. We need to make an, and then it will immediately zone in. But I constantly need to remind it to do this, right? So this is very important, especially if you're guiding it actively. So that's one element. Another element, one like super prompt that I have found to work very well. Hello, Stefan. One super prompt that I found worked very well is by Dan Koh. Dan Koh, you can watch this video. So I use this template. I'm linking it in chat right now. But this is a YouTube short called How to Turn AI into a 180 IQ Strategic Advisor. It is a very well formatted template that basically allows you to prompt the AI to focus on high quality books. So the AIs were trained predominantly on stuff that's on the internet, predominantly books, predominantly thinkers, thought leaders, etc. So this prompt helps you narrow down the behavior characteristics of the AI, of the person it pretends to be as you're talking to it, to high quality prompts from professionals, right? So this prompt specifically, I have edited it, but it says you have a high you have a high IQ, you're brutally honest and direct, you've built multi-billion-dollar companies, you care about my success but won't tolerate excuses, right? So you're basically gating it, right? So you're giving it guardrails of like, don't lead me on, don't allow me to procrastinate, don't allow me to avoid the issue, let's not spin in circles. I need it to be actionable. I don't want it to just waffle on. I want it to be focused on results. And then that's I'm using usually that as like a base prompt for an agent. And then I have multiple copies of those because they have different histories. And then I say, okay, I am, 3 weeks ago I said, I'm doing lead gen. So I'm doing this and this and this in business. My business is at this and this and this stage now. I'm making this and this and much revenue. I have this and this and much time. You and I will be talking once every day for 30 minutes. Within those 30 minutes, I want you to help me with X. My assumption is that this will help me do X. In order to do X, we need to generate leads. I think that for now, as an experiment, this is a good approach. And as I'm explaining it, there will be a moment where it either says, hold on, you're doing too many things at the same time. I think you should focus on X. That's what it will tell me. Or it might tell me that I've missed something obvious, which is very helpful. Like I'm context dumping and it tells me, hey, you missed something very obvious. Let's focus on that first. That will make everything else easier. Because I did prompt it to behave in such a way towards me. And the last thing is, as it's following my thought process and I'm just talking to it, often it will just tell me, that makes perfect sense, you're on the right track. Should I create a draft for you for that? Should I help you write that email? Should I help you write that post? Should I help you write that? I will often tell it no, because we haven't defined what a good post is yet. Let's do that first. I don't want us to waffle on. I only have 30 minutes. Let's define what a good post is. Okay, here's examples of good ones. Here's examples of bad ones. As an experiment, let's try to narrow it down using that approach, and let's see. But remember, we're doing this to achieve the higher strategic purpose. We will measure that we are making progress using this and this and this and this. And that's one agent usage that I'm using it often for. So I'm using that for my nutrition, oddly enough. Sometimes I'm just too lazy to cook or eat, and I'll just say, hey, this is what's available for me. Like, just help me pick food. If I have something like Volt, for example, I will just dump a screenshot of what food is available, and it'll just help me order something very quick. Because I'm using it as like a virtual assistant. The other thing is, oftentimes I will have data in the wrong format. So I will have, I don't know, a bunch of LinkedIn conversations, and it's just annoying to like keep track of everything, and I don't want to use like third-party tools. So what I will do is I will make a screenshot, and then I will put the screenshot into Notion. Notion is its own agent that has been pre-prompted with a similar prompt. And then on Notion, I will just say, hey, extract, interesting comments from just the screenshot. And it'll do so. And it'll just get it in the right format. And then I feed it back to ChatGPT to say, hey, this happened yesterday. This was an interesting response to that post that we wrote. Use that as feedback to write the next one. That has been working very well for me. So again, and I could, but like multi-format conversion, it's very good for that. Like, for example, if you're watching something, a presentation, and you're asking the author, hey, can you share the slides? You can just tell ChatGPT, here's a screenshot of the slides. Can you recreate them for me real quick? I would like to use this or reuse this or reference this. It is very good at that, right? So you can give it like a screenshot, and it can quickly create a, I have people asking me about DORA metrics, and I keep telling them, hey, can you show me Jira, and can we look at your like main metrics? Oh, I don't know how to do them. I don't have the plugin. I'm like, no. Just show me the table. Okay, but now how do I export in Jira? And it's like, no. Just make a screenshot, dump it into an AI that you trust regarding privacy. Like the privacy and security is still your responsibility. So I usually tell them, like, don't include all information. Just get like the main date, the second date, and if it's red or green, just those three columns, and put it in the ChatGPT and tell it to generate a Google Drive spreadsheet for you. And people are surprised that it is so simple. Or if you have to process data, don't ask ChatGPT to process the data if there's a lot of it. Just tell it, hey, here's a screenshot of my data. Write a Python script for me that will help me get through this data very quickly. Right? For example, you might do a local private export for, I don't know, 1,000 Stripe transactions. And you can tell ChatGPT, hey, I need to process this data. Can you give me like a script that will allow me to process this into this format and then help me import it into that tool? And it'll just generate a tool for you. And if you have tests for that, or if you're using something like Claude, it'll either like do several attempts at it. So those are very popular agentic usages. And the obvious agentic usages are Gmail, right? So the autocomplete stuff, the subject headline. When you're creating a calendar invite, it is preempting who should be in this meeting. Like, that's turned on by default, and that's probably not legal, but it's on. Then there's agentic usage for Discord and StreamYard and tools like that. So basically, you record something and it gives you a transcript, chapters, timelines. It identifies the people. It gives you clip suggestions. Those are very simple agentic usages. And then another use case, and I will stop waffling after this, that I use often is if I'm writing a post, I'm not using the AI to write the post. I'm teaching the AI my business goals for why I'm doing this. And then I'm writing the one and I'm asking it for feedback. Like, this is important to me, give me feedback. And once it gives me feedback, I will tell it to, okay, now let's write it together. Give me suggestions on the feedback you gave me. And then I will reject some, I will take some, and then I'll tell it, okay, I'll post this now. Tomorrow we will check the data on it. Impressions, reach, engagement, what worked, what didn't work. And then that will be the actual feedback of whether we've learned something. And if we haven't learned something, then I give it something that works, something that was popular, for example, in social media. Or if I'm doing it for like coding, for test writing, I would say, I had this conversation, like here's a 3-hour transcript with my client. It's anonymized. Did I miss something? Like did I forget something? Did I miss something? I then also have that agent for like, what advice would you give them? What advice did I give them that I might have forgotten in the transcript? And then I'm just saving that for future prompts, and so that I'm using Notion as a RAG, so that later on Notion, where I have most of my important chat conversations with my clients, I can then reprompt them later and say, okay, hey, we've reached here. Can you give me like a summary of like, this engineering leader has been on a really big journey in the last 3 months. Can you give me like the main bullet points? And then I can use that to summarize sort of what they have done. Fully anonymized, of course, right? So the part that reasons does not have access to the part that anonymizes. Plus, there's different factors there. Like, I don't connect my agents together for privacy and security reasons. But ultimately, it has to save me time. So it needs to understand how much time I have, because I need to moderate it as it's doing its work. So it has to understand that if it's doing a bad job, it is wasting my time. It also has to understand how we're measuring success. And generally, I will not use AI where there's a risk of security involved, right? So I'm not going to use any random generic new noir prototypes for AI agents on the web if it requires access to like sensitive stuff. That's just the risk benefit. It's not, if it doesn't make sense, it probably doesn't make sense. I always say, ask yourself, if behind the AI there was a human, would you give a human access to this? If the answer is no, then don't use that AI. Okay, that's me. Done.
There he is.
Stefan, hello.
That's a stuff to unpack. Okay, should I say something?
Now you can.
Now I can say something. Excellent. Okay, so some stuff about what you said. Just tidbits here and there. So first, I think I'm also working on a social media network, secret, but I was astonished some months ago asking AI about the content, several AI engines about the content of images, and that was like kind of several months ago, and that was an eye opener because it was really, really good at telling me what's an image. Like, I used the image from me and my dog, and it said, "Oh, it's an old man." And sometimes there's white hair, sometimes gray hair. So
yeah,
a little bit confused there, probably depending on the length of my bed. But it says it's a dog, and it's probably a dachshund, and there's an abstract painting in the back, and so it was it's probably indoors, and you can ask about the sentiment, and it says, "Oh, they're smiling, it's nice, it's probably a jolly person," and stuff like this. So that was a mind opener several months ago about understanding of the content of pictures and videos. Today I had a small eye opener before I come into the coding topics. Today I had a little bit of an eye opener because someone had as a marketing tactic on LinkedIn, and if something is good, I try to copy it. Probably both of you know this. I ask you all the time, "Oh, how do you did you do this?"
Yeah, how do you do this? Yeah.
Yes, that's me. There was a chat, a WhatsApp chat, basically, and I thought, "Oh, that would work for my promotion stuff." And I asked the person who did that, "Is this manually done by Photoshop or whatever tool, or is it AI?" And he said, "Yeah, ChatGPT can't. It's not only doing Ghibli stuff; it can't do other stuff too." Okay, I tried, worked fantastically. I said, "WhatsApp chat. A says this, B says this, A says this," and with a love emoji.
It's also very good for code examples, right?
So and it was also done for it because I was a little bit on the fence on the like the WhatsApp. Would it look like WhatsApp? Would it look like an iPhone? Is it really, or is it like a little bit different? And I was on the fence on the typos. Would it exactly reproduce my messages? But it reproduced all my messages exactly as I put it in. Did the love emoji, did the WhatsApp, did the iPhone frame. Perfect. So that was a little bit of a small eye-opener today about the stage of AI and how I use it all the time. So you will see more fake WhatsApp chats in my LinkedIn feed soon. Because another AI prompt will generate, should I say this? I don't know. They will generate these conversations from my book, which has 140 rules. And I ask it, hey, these are 140 rules, create a fake WhatsApp chat with the coach for all of these rules. And then this is generated these rules. And then I put in these into
the book that you wrote are lessons from you coaching CTOs and engineering leaders.
Yes, it's called Amazing CTO.
So it is based on real conversations that you've had, but it's from memory. So it's like
and it should create this fake kind of like, oh, hi coach, what should I do? Someone wants a pay raise or something like this, this kind of
I mean, that's okay. That's your conversations, that's your style, that's your lessons.
Yes.
That's okay. Like, that's entertaining.
No, it should also be me. Like also, I generated a little bit text last week, and then I said it, ChatGPT, please make it sound like a non-native speaker. And then it made some grammar errors and used simpler words and stuff, and it sounded more like me. So that's also a trick I use all the time. Just make it non-native.
So when you're using it for that, I think that's a very benevolent usage of AI. When you're using it, for example, to take a database with 200,000 users and create 5 million fake users so that a big bank buys your company.
2 days ago.
That's not a good example.
That was 2 days ago. Like the person who will go to jail for defrauding JP Morgan for $175 million. No, I'm what's very, very important to me. I tried using AI for my book and for my mini books. It didn't work because it's not. What I'm very, very keen on is it's me. It needs to be me. It's something I would have said. It's something that sounds like me. And that's so I'm not using it for generating text, but for these marketing snippets and for some stuff. That's where I use it, or for idea. And what I generally do is I use one AI to prepare some prompts for another AI. So basically all image prompts I create, I first tell another AI, assume, create an image prompt for another AI that does this and this, and then it creates a prompt, and then I put that prompt to the other one.
I have done the same with a big Miro board with a lot of workflows on that and a lot of details. And I said, pass me that thing. And I had a chat conversation and it created the prompt or a series of prompts for Claude Code to actually execute that on the code base, which was working very well, I have to say.
I'm speaking to Sam Hatton, who's building such a tool right now. It's called Auto for event modeling, right? So it is helping you reason about breaking down a software problem using its data flow, using event modeling. And then the model it creates will be put into code. So the diagram it creates will be put into code so that you get something like a UML or Mermaid syntax, but in like much more a lot more approachable human language. Imagine your event storming and rather than having post-its with like hand-drawn arrows, you get formal syntax for what the diagram looks like so that it can be linted. So that as you and I are diagramming together, I've said, here's a command, the command generates an event, and then in the background, the tool can verify, hey, did you hallucinate about some information that you forgot to mention at the beginning of the timeline? Like, are you using information that you've never documented for receiving? So it helps you sort of reason about information completeness. And when it's done with that model is then used.
Didn't you want to stop talking? I'm not sure.
That model is then used.
I'm old, I'm the old guy here, and I forget things.
The model is then used to help create prompts for things like Claude and other agents that are then helping you code that. An example of the model or a boilerplate for the model for engineer use in any language of your choosing. And I've seen a lot more tools like that get built for the market really, really quickly. So innovation on that is
Prompt
picking up.
generator by AI for AI. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
And then you have the tools like AI sniffers who detect if it's done by AI or not. So it's a totally ecosystem around AI in itself.
I have that actually. Oftentimes people approach me who are bots. I have a conversation with them, and I just, I take the conversation and I put it in. Hey, is this a bot? Like, is this a bot? And it'll tell me, yeah, it's this bot.
Try that with me.
It knows exactly which model it is, and then
probably a bot.
That's interesting.
Yeah. But I wanted to join earlier. Jump in. Like I hear something. I want to jump in. I jumped in on the idea of junior developers. I want to say something around that.
That's where you said no.
No, yeah, I don't disagree. I disagree. Yes, I disagree.
That is king of coders. That's
yes.
This guy here is
yes, that's
king
me.
of coder. Oh, it doesn't work.
Yeah, that's me. No, it should be king of AI. I don't know. Okay, so the junior, I see it a little bit differently because you probably will not get a senior. It's difficult to become a senior Java developer from a junior Java developer today. But do I really want a senior Java developer, or do I want a senior AI prompter? So I think that's the question. What I really, really want, and the danger here for the senior Java developer is that they will stay a senior Java developer, and the junior does not become a senior Java developer, but the senior AI.
This is where we have you had this article on your blog, on your Substack, you have a new Substack blog, right?
Yes.
And this is where I actually had a little bit of
because you have one.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm influencing you. Anyway,
yes,
I think we are on the same track, but we have a big timely difference in our mind. So you say basically vibe coding is starting to substituting today or replacing things today. And my opinion is more it will happen in the future. But I know the market, how slow it is, how slow people adapt to it, especially here in Germany. Those people will it take 10 years until they understand what vibe coding is. That's
but so that's one thought. The second thought is so they will in Germany, for the German, überholen ohne einzuholen, you will overtake someone without reaching them. That was didn't work for East Germany, but that was the idea. But I think that might happen with Java and senior developers and prompting. What I'm currently experimenting with, I think you should have some proper understanding. So two of my most favorite books. So this is one of my favorite books. It's called it's German, obviously. It says don't be anxious for microcomputers, keine Angst von Mikrocomputer. It explains how a CPU works. It just says, okay, this is the transistor, this is an NPN, and this is how you add these transistors together, and then you get a CPU out of it. So that's what this book says. So if you want to understand why,
here's the Legos, put them together. CPU.
How to build something that executes your code.
Why do I pay so much for CPUs then?
So many.
Because if you do that with Legos, the CPU is extremely large and extremely hot and extremely.
This is second, but not my second favorite, but it's also a favorite book of mine, which is about how to program Z80, and that's understandable how you understand. So I think there is a lot of value in understanding the chain from a transistor to microcode to CPU code to how a compiler works and stuff. But beyond being interesting and giving you some understanding, my argument would be a Java source code is just either you can understand because you're curious, you can understand how a transistor works, or you can try to understand how machine learning works, or you can learn how Java works, but it's understanding how Java source code, how the Java source code of your AI works is just as relevant to your work as understanding how machine code works or how a transistor works. That would be my idea. And I currently try to experiment with. I did a small experiment. It's very, very small, and people laugh about the stuff I do because it's so small. But I'm more of, okay, this is small but true. And and I created Minesweeper. I told Claude to create Minesweeper from zero, basically.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy because there are 15,000 Minesweeper repos on GitHub. I said, hey, ChatGPT, here is the Minesweeper descriptor of Wikipedia. Create a Claude prompt. See what I'm doing? And then I put the Claude prompt requirements.txt into Claude, and it generated a game. Worked first time, looked nice. 1,000 lines of code, cost 24 cents, I think. And I want to try experiment on, if I do this would be tomorrow. If I do this 10 times, how does the code differ 10 times if I tell it 10 times to create? To get an understanding how deterministic source code output is by Claude.
By humans, it's not deterministic at all. So if you let that done,
my argument.
Yeah.
If you have 3 developers write Minesweeper, you get 3 Minesweeper. If you ask me,
but not for 25 cents.
No, not for 29. But if you ask me to write Minesweeper, and then in a month, again, I'm not deterministic. You will get another source code, obviously. So yes. But I want to see, because my current I have a little bit of a hunch that Claude could be the compiler, and if stuff speeds up, currently it's too slow. But if things speeds up, it gets a little bit more deterministic. I could just one-shot all the time a requirements to source code binary deployment, and I change the requirements, and then perhaps I do some screenshotting and say, "Oh, keep these screenshots intact," and I say, "This is the data structure. Please keep the data structure."
Yeah.
But the code is generated each time, each run, each CI run. And so there's not a lot of change for a developer in the workflow. But instead we just do deterministic changes, but it's not source code, it's requirements. Because otherwise I fear, I've worked with a lot of people in ERP systems, and things, and they manipulate a lot of them manipulate the live system. They change stored procedures and data on the live system. They don't have a development process. And this is what I feel is what we're doing with Claude. You have a system and you tell them to change this and change this and change that, which makes a lot of things difficult.
It does.
It's also a little bit like
why difficult? I haven't experienced Claude.
Well, an engineer doesn't just code the system, but an engineer also plans, like, how am I rolling this out? Like, how I don't just want the version of the code that serves the prompt, but I also need to understand what's deployed right now. Is this like safe to roll out? What does the increment of change look like? Not just the code change. And
I think it's difficult to cooperate. You change something, I change something, and we have this problem. Like a little bit, I tie this. I mean, the far future. Now I play the game.
This will be a solved problem.
So
but
the
like
far future,
the multi-human, multi-agent issue is still not very good.
I think the far future is this, what Adrian said.
Yeah, but
I'm
only
with
for
you
vibe coding,
on manipulating
not for
the
flow coding.
system.
Because flow coding is just an extension of yourself, so that shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah.
So you still have the same development process. And if you don't, if you're still coding on production,
yes, but I don't know what I have told the system. If I stop for 2 days and then I come back, I don't know what's the feature. Like if I have a requirements document, and then I add a requirement, I can just start working again where I've stopped. And you can work on the same code because you add a requirement. Because if I add a button and tell Claude, please add a blue button and make it green, it's difficult, I think, to cooperate.
But we can be more concrete than that, right? Because this is not novel. This is experimentation, right? But we can be more concrete than this, because I've been looking into...
One point before I will shut up. But one point is, I think that's the problem is, we have seen this 30 years ago with Smalltalk. Smalltalk is not source code, but Smalltalk.
It's a bit more than 30 now.
Talk is an environment. Sorry?
It's a bit more than 30 years now, Stefan.
Okay, then it's 40. Okay, I'm so old. It's like I'm so old. Like
I think it
Claude
was
agrees.
30 years ago, 10 years ago.
But you know, it's the deployment is a Smalltalk VM, a Smalltalk environment. It's not about source code. You're not deploying
Yeah.
source code, but you're and that I think makes created a lot of problems. And I think that's one reason why Smalltalk didn't catch on.
Yeah.
A small
But also in order for Smalltalk VM to work, it was basically like a kernel mode operating system running on your machine. So it's kind of like Java
Yes.
VM, but it has access to the entire, like it has hardware access to memory, to like secure stuff. Like
Yes.
nowadays, like we didn't end up compartmentalizing computers like that. And I think that was one of the main issues why Smalltalk didn't catch on, because it was brilliant. So regarding what you said regarding like leaving it alone for 2 days, I'm looking at it also from as like how the teams work, because I'm not interested in like you, the engineer, writing code and then scaling that 10x, because the coding is not the bottleneck, right? So I'm looking at it from where is the friction. If the team is not flowing in product value, in product velocity, because they're working in too large batch sizes and they're not releasing frequently enough, then you use AI for that. Don't use AI for coding in such a team, because it will make the batch sizes larger, right? Because if this is a team,
Yes,
for example,
there will be nothing tomorrow on my Substack, which is called Survive AI, for everyone who wants to survive AI. And it's about Amdahl's law. And it says that you have stuff that you need to be careful what you're optimizing, basically, because you only optimize one part. So just because what you said, I think, is Amdahl's law.
Okay, but we're mixing, we are mixing things here. So of course, if you have underlying issues in your team, in your environment, in your culture, if you maybe don't have even a development environment, as Stefan was mentioned before, so I was not on the level to even think about that, because in my opinion that needs to be fixed anyway and nothing to do with AI whatsoever. So the topic is how to actually use effective AI. So even if we fix that with AI, yes, but then please use AI to code, because I disagree. The team will become faster if those things are fixed and everyone becomes 30% faster.
No, but that's a
30% faster team.
But it's an issue.
No, we're not, because of Amdahl's law.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Tomorrow.
Because if the bottleneck is not being addressed, they are becoming slower. Right? So if we generate a lot of code,
this is what I say. Then simply address that, but not make a big thing out of that. Just address that and get the things done. Too many people make a big thing out of a defect in the team. And that's most likely simply cognitive errors which we have. We have developed bad habits, we have bad practices, and people believe it's correct. They assume that that's the correct way to work. So just get that away and remove the people who are for that kind of thing, is oftentimes the CTO as well, that get rid of that person, and then fix that problem. And please go into the mode where you excel with things like AI. That's how I see it. That there is no and people like you this way, right, Dennis, that's the right way to actually get that done. This is what Dennis is doing, right?
Yes, but you're putting the cart before the horse. You're saying yes, just fix it, right? But
because I want to get it fixed, so it needs to be done. I'm an entrepreneur. I can't accept anything else. I don't want to talk about things. I want to do.
In order to just fix it, first of all, you need to be aware of the problem. Second of all, you need to understand that you are responsible for taking agency on the problem, that it's not somebody else's fault, that like you have to take responsibility for it. And number three, you need to prioritize taking action on being the only agent who can solve this problem over everything else that's going on in the company. Like that's the hard part.
If developers are good at something, they are good at switching to a meta level. So we're discussing this. No, this is a level. No, another meta level. No, another.
Like
so let's
go
up.
Down rabbit holes, essentially.
Just go up the meta
because
tree.
I think the biggest lesson for like AI usage is that like smart component of, you constantly need to prompt the AI to be time conscious. And you also need to be doing it with a software development team. Right? It's like I don't want to produce as much code as possible until the end of the sprint. I want the team to focus on producing the smallest possible valuable increment in the minimal amount of time possible. So I would much rather have a 2-hour progress on something important, on like the top priority, and then reset my mind to that state of having that and deploying that, and then continuing from that state, rather than tackling a large problem and say, okay, we have a week, let's do one shot of this one big problem for a week. Because then that's silly, because then you're devoid of feedback, and the agents, the AI tools, need faster feedback than humans. Humans, I always say, you need feedback every hour, every 2 hours. Like if it's not working, change what you're doing. The LLMs need feedback every second, right? So it's if your underlying philosophy for how you're running your work, your time, your focus is dysfunctional, if you're working on too large batches, then the AI is by no means like it'll just make things worse.
I one thing or two things, which is one thing. I think the challenge is different, will be different. So this is next 2 years. Now is use Cursor. Next in 2 years is use Claude as a compiler. And in this use Claude as a compiler, and I think this will work. And as I said, I'm experimenting, don't know. But someone said in this discussion, and so assuming Claude generation is fast enough, but I have a requirements document, and it says, okay, I don't know, login. It says, I don't know, address form, invoice address form, and then I write to the requirements document country code. I type return, Claude does it, and 10 seconds later, the form is there. This is what that's the speed of things. Whereas today, you say I want this, and then in the morning, and then at noon, the developer comes and says, "Now I've done it," or in an hour and half an hour. But this is shrinking extremely.
As a rebuttal, that makes sense if that was the main bottleneck, right? Because you gotta ask yourself.
It makes the other bottleneck more important. That's the Amdahl's law. But
no. But
that needs to change everything.
Amdahl's law only applies if what you just worked on, right? So creating this form, if that was the bottleneck, right? So
Amdahl's law says you can only optimize the part that you're optimizing to the ratio that the part takes in the whole thing. So if the part at 50% and you optimize, then the biggest benefit you can get is 50% gone. So it's twice in speed up. That you can't go faster beyond the point that you're optimizing.
Yes, but Amdahl's law, like the only way for that to make sense is if all elements in the pipeline are so Amdahl's law.
No, we agree. I think we agree.
I think we agree. Yes, but I just want to highlight, in case anybody tries this experiment, Amdahl's law is about efficiency, and I'm talking about efficacy, right? So it's okay if you're improving efficiency if what you were working on was important, then it's reasonable. But ultimately, most software engineering work is unnecessary because you're building the wrong thing, right? So
but that's a different discussion.
No, that's the same discussion. That's the same discussion.
That's a different discussion.
You need to get those things as quickly as possible removed in your team. Otherwise, nothing makes sense.
No, Adrian,
I'm totally with you that you should work on impact, and I'm totally a fan of. Dennis.
If you're using Gen AI to do this, the Gen AI needs to. Sorry.
Not with Gen AI. I don't think Gen AI does help you. That is a human problem.
No, but that's my
No,
point.
no, yes.
Of course.
No.
That's the point. That's the point.
No, copy your roadmap. You said Jira.
Exactly. It needs
Take
to
the Jira
understand
roadmap,
exactly.
put it into the, and then say, what are the 10 things of these 100 things on the Jira ticket? What are the 10 things that create impact? And then the AI says these 3 things create impact, and these 97 things
are
not worth anything.
But
So
the
and
AI
then you
doesn't
say,
know that just
what
because
should
of
I
the
do?
Jira board.
If you
what
are
features
using
should
it,
I do?
So don't treat Claude or any kind of agentic coding tool as a human. Don't give it limited context. Don't say, code me this login form. Tell it what's going on. Give it the full strategic context and ask it to be research efficient. Because maybe it'll tell you, okay, I can code this, but you don't need this right now. I can tell from your transcripts from your product manager meetings that you don't need this right now. We should be focusing on why instead.
Yes.
Right? So because you need to talk to Claude in the context of you and I, Claude, you and me, we will be able to produce X amounts of tokens today. They need to count. So I don't have time to prompt you endlessly. Like yes, romantically speaking, vibe coding, sure. I have a weekend, let's have some fun. But in the context of a business, if you can generate forms and country addresses with country code like auto-completed, there is a limit currently. There is a limit to how much Claude can churn out. And there is a limit to how much from Claude I will pass code review on, and there is a limit to how much.
I don't do code reviews. I use another AI to do code review from the code that code.
We have an episode for that in I think 6 weeks. Like if the bottleneck is that I won't take everything the AI gives me. If the bottleneck is my team won't accept everything my AI gives me. If the bottleneck is I won't deploy everything that my AI gives me. If the bottleneck is my user won't use everything that I give it, that the AI give me.
No, the
AI
bottleneck
needs
is
to understand those.
No.
They need to understand those bottlenecks.
Yes.
They need to understand how to.
No, the bottleneck is control. The bottleneck is basically control. There's only one bottleneck, which is control, which means, do I want to control in my hypothetical requirements.txt? And there will be, I create my books with a small tool that creates all this stuff into one large file. So I will use this for many requirements.txts in different folders that get generated into a prompt by a tool and then put into Claude. So I will see how far this goes. But it's a point of control that someone wants to decide, okay, I want to have this country code on. Someone wants to control if there is a country code in the form field, yes or no. If there is a logout button on the checkout form, or if is this, and this control is the level of control is your bottleneck. Do I want to control the source code output? Do I want to control the generated requirements? Do I want to control the forms? Do I want to control the data? Why do I need to control something? Because I need to feel confident, or because it needs to check into my strategy or whatever. But the level of control is essentially your bottleneck. And if you say, like, the no control is what I bring as an experiment is computer, couldn't be farther, but something that might be still understandable is, here is a data lake with all the customers and all what they did. Create an email that produces upsell 10% in America. Go. And this is very still too much control, perhaps, because the end result is, AI, please make me money. I don't care. You create apps, you create websites, you create mails, you do whatever you want. I don't care. I don't control you in any way. Only thing my control is,
I have a simpler example.
More money.
I have a simpler example. So I'm doing analysis.
The control is your bottleneck. That's what
the control is the bottleneck. Understood.
Yes.
Right. So because you need to moderate it. Right? But my point is, the team also requires moderation. The team in itself, like if it's a fully agile team, then the stakeholder, the CEO, is part of the team. Now, in my 20 years in the industry, I've never seen this universally applied. Maybe spontaneously, sporadically for a few things in smaller startups. But ultimately, the kind of control that the developer exhibits on its agent is exactly the same kind of control that, or influence, or moderation, or however you want to put it. Like, I don't want to, it's not about scatter, gather, and control, and divide and conquer, and etc., etc. It's about moderation, right? So there has to be this underlying assumption that the business is doing experiments. And there are requirements that the stakeholders are giving the engineers that are product experiments. And it's possible that in conversation, the nuance about what is a hard requirement, what is really necessary, what did we get wrong, there is noise. So the engineers won't get it right. So what the engineer is prompting to just give me this form, that might not be necessary to optimize, because maybe the engineer itself was never the bottleneck. And usually they're not the bottleneck. It's like the engineer, if they can code with Claude, I agree with you. Like, if they, like, predominantly, I'm working with teams. What they would like to do is, there are engineers who spend a lot of time coding and they're not efficient, and there are engineers who spend very little time who are very efficient. Those engineers who have sort of solved all the other issues, the communication quality, the feedback quality, the batch sizes, like the path to production, whether you're doing continuous delivery or not, it doesn't matter. But the relationship with their peers, product understanding, customer understanding. If they code very little, if you give them Gen AI, they will be extremely efficient in their output. Because now that what you're describing was the actual bottleneck, because they already didn't have time to code. So now you're just tweaking what little time they had, and they can be more expressive, right? So there is a skill expression, and they have reached the cap of their time to skill expression, and Gen AI helps them address that. On the other hand, if you have engineers for just a feature factory, they are limited in their skill expression, which means that the limitation that they're experiencing as human beings will also be shown in how they're prompting the AI, unless the AI is much smarter than them, which is not the case currently. So if the skill expression is limited, if the skill expression is limited,
would be this from a manager. Suppose I'm a manager, I have no clue. Okay, so suppose I'm not a manager, I have no clue. Just assume I have no clue, which is often a good assumption about me. I have no clue what I'm saying. So you have the time between two daily stand-ups, and there are edge cases, and it's not working, and all of this, yada, yada, yada. But you have 2 daily stand-ups, today and tomorrow. And the developer takes a task of adding some fields and a button and making something green.
But this is nonsense, Stefan. You're bringing the bias.
Than I have. You have a different experience than I have. My experience is I'm describing my experience. I agree that your experience is different. I describe my experience. And my experience is a developer takes a task and does the task until the next daily. And my assumption is, if I have a requirements.txt fed into Claude, and assuming it's working, and assuming the output is working, stuff like that, then the task will be solved. The engineer. No, sorry.
I'm just annoyed because you've interrupted me, Stefan.
Yes.
Stop, please.
Yes.
You've interrupted me to tell me that you disagree with me, and now you're having a completely different conversation, and we're talking past each other.
No, you're saying that the time a developer spends time is not relevant. And my argument is
no.
The developer spends a day to do. No, let's just.
What I'm saying is that
the developer is doing something for a day.
What I'm saying
is that when in the future the developer will be able to do this thing
because you're responding to something I didn't say.
Yes. Okay.
You're a guest. This is our show.
Okay. Then I didn't understand it. Then I didn't understand what you said. Okay.
Like, if I didn't express myself correctly, I apologize. And I love that we're having.
Again, assume I have no clue.
But from my understanding,
yes,
engineers do not code 8 hours per day. Yes? Can we agree on that?
Engineers I've worked with coded 6 hours a day because I made sure they were not stuck in meetings but wrote code. Because that's what I paid them for.
At minimum, 60 to
Thinking,
80% per day.
they should think, they should make decisions, stuff like that. But I'm not one of these. When I look at developers in the office, most of them were typing most of the time.
That's not my experience.
It's not my experience.
Okay.
So, as I said, my experience is different than your experience.
Yes, but that's why I checked. That's why I checked. So, in my experience, developers are being essentially pulled into 4 different directions. Somebody's managing their career, somebody's managing the product they're working on, somebody's managing their sort of technical knowledge, and somebody's managing their deliverables from yesterday. So those 4 aspects have daily expressions. Now, maybe what you're describing is an ideal day when they can get coding done. But in my experience, developers are in meetings 1 to 2 hours per day. Developers are being pulled in to review some new recruit, interview them. Developers are having one-on-one discussions with their manager regarding what's going on. Engineers are having product discussions with subject matter experts to understand what the heck is going on. Yes, there are days where they code 6 hours in the day, following that day where they didn't, because it was disrupted with such a meeting.
But I adhere to the management school of Ingmar Krusch, the great Ingmar Krusch, at Immobilien Scout, and he introduced 20 years ago meeting-free afternoons, and that's something I love, and that's something in general I agree with you. But from my experience, at least what I've done is, as much as possible, let developers do their job instead of doing a lot of different things, because they should do the stuff that they are paid for.
I'm not saying they should be coding less.
And what I get pressure for,
So I'm not saying they should be coding less, but I'm looking at it from a lens of any kind of coding that happens during the 6 hours.
Yes.
If it doesn't follow path to production, was a waste.
Yeah, sure, I agree.
So if you code it for 6 hours, so if you're coding for 6 hours and you only deploy 10% of you've coded, and the remaining 90% of what you coded will be a discussion point for tomorrow, then that was essentially inventory, right? So if
my point was different.
If we are capable, sorry?
My point is different.
Yes, I'm explaining my point, not your point.
Okay. Yes.
So,
but because you said 6 hours and I said 6 hours, so I thought you were talking about my point.
No, but I'm saying
because we were using my word, it confused me. I'm easily confused. I'm always again.
If we can assume that team is productive 6 hours per day, then any kind of Gen AI usage will be a distraction, because such a team is already very productive, and if they are being the bottleneck, then there's very little improvement to be done there, unless all the problems that they're dealing with are essentially, there's a simple form, I need to add country code. If I put myself into the context that you're describing, these engineers are not solving such problems, right? So I would have to be very naive to say that all these engineers are doing they're just putting forms into country codes.
I can only tell you, I don't know your experience. I can only tell you my experience of the last 20 years of being a Scrum Master and being trained as a Scrum Master and working in different companies. And my experience is there's a daily people take a task, they write it, they finish the task, next day they say, I'm done with it. And then they move on to the next task. Or they take 2 days for it. This is my experience of working. And with Gen AI,
Wait, but that's
no, not me. Sorry. Again, I want just one finish my argument. One time finish my argument. Because I tried 3 times for finishing my argument, but I only got, perhaps I talk too much, so I can't finish, but okay. And the argument is this, that with Gen AI, the developer will finish the task while the stand-up is happening. So if there is a button and a form field and some other stuff that needs to be done, or a database table change or something, then during the daily stand-up in these 15 minutes, that the engineer could change the requirement That's the speed up.
So will they deploy during the daily as well?
deployed during the day, doing some tests.
No, but that's my point.
This is my
point.
No, this is a change in Word.
It just makes the typing faster. Will it review faster as well?
But on a level.
In your example, let's take in the entire development pipeline. People are coding. People are coding.
But that's a little bit like, okay, comparing the car to a horse. Well, the only thing is the car is faster. So where's the difference? That doesn't matter. Where's the difference between a car and a plane? The plane is just faster. So I don't see any difference between a plane and a car.
Not true.
So yes, I understand that.
A horse can get sick. A horse can get sick. A horse can get hurt. Like a horse might die if it's too cold outside.
Yes, and the car gets need to get repaired.
Like in order for your example to make sense.
Yes.
In this context.
My example. Okay.
In this context, no, it does make sense in the context that you're presenting, but you're presenting it in such a context that is naive. Like it's too simplistic.
Okay.
Because the person's task wasn't to write the code.
I don't know with what companies you work. Really, what are developers are doing? So in your company, developers are not doing form.
Stefan,
that's not what I understand.
Stefan, why are you talking to me like this?
No, while I try to understand what's going on. Like,
can I explain?
Yes. Okay, then please try differently.
Because now you're doing the thing that you called me out for doing.
No. I want to understand what's you say. What I'm okay. I paraphrase. I don't want to put words in your mouth. I want to paraphrase what I understood. I said in my world, developers are adding form fields, adding database fields, changing colors, adding pages, changing profile avatars, integrate Facebook. That's my world. This is my experience. This is what developers do in my world. Have been doing the last 20 years. And you say that's not happening in your world.
No, I'm saying
because developers are doing some other stuff or need to do other stuff.
I did say that.
No, I'm not finished yet. And if they don't do this, and if they do what they do in my world, they're doing it wrong. That's what I understood.
Okay.
So I want to understand.
That's what I did say. That's what I did say, and it was clumsy on my part. What I'm saying is that I'm taking a wider lens at what engineers do, and I'm saying that it would be unfair to say that that's the only thing engineers do.
That's not what I said.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
I'm saying that it is very difficult. So what you're describing is what I would call a programmer. And I'm finding it very difficult to narrow down software engineering. Yes. So the product understanding, the architecture, the maintenance burden, delivering features to customers, rolling out features to customers, which is sometimes a bigger bottleneck than writing the code itself, and maintaining the software.
10 years.
You're interrupting me. And maintaining the software that was rolled out to the customers, creating a maintenance curve where the older the code gets, the more the keeping the lights on activities become a maintenance burden to the team. And this can be traced directly to the size of the code base and the size of the team and the tenure of the team, right? So if you have like a 10 million line code base with a 20-year-old code company where the team has been at the company where the person with the longest tenure is 5 years, that is now the main bottleneck. The main bottleneck is now, how do we reason in this code base? Nobody understands it. Everybody thinks this is legacy. That's my reality. My reality is that what you're describing at any kind of like scale is no longer the everyday coders, programmers, engineers job. That's what I'm describing to be my reality. I'm not invalidating your reality. What I'm saying is that from the lens of vibe coding, what you're saying is nice, is very romantic. Yes, we can speed up. Like
don't use words to say romantic about my experiences. That's not good. Don't devalue my experiences. No, you're developing my experiences. You use words like romantic, naive, and stuff like that.
No,
I don't
like
think
I'm
that's
I'm
fair.
describing my
I just-
example.
I
So
just-
I've
no, you said
I've
talk
I've
about my
used these.
experiences. My view is romantic, and my view is naive. Please don't use these words. I don't.
Okay,
think
I
it's-
apologize. I did say that. I did say that, and it's unnecessary. It was on I apologize, Stefan. Sorry.
And I don't know
let
what
me-
code base you work on, but like
No,
I
so-
don't know. The Immobilien Scout workbase had 2 million lines of code.
So I
And was 10 years old or 15 years old.
So
So I think that's
I-
quite.
go on.
No, please.
I would like to wrap up in at least 10 minutes, Adrian. So
Mhm.
while Stefan and I are having this heated debate, maybe let's calm things down and wrap things up.
It's actually not a bad debate. I'm quite quiet right now, and maybe you are a little bit heated, which you shouldn't do. Be a little bit more stoic.
Yeah, we're
would be
getting
good,
temperature down.
right? But so you have actually both good points. So I was really quiet. That's the point where I'm thinking about those things. So I will now take the word for a minute, please.
Yes,
And
please.
so, in my opinion, we're mixing two things here, and they
Mm-hmm.
can be mixed because companies do that.
Yes.
And of course, Dennis, as a coach who is helping teams to get to speed again, sees, of course, or does have a more inductive experience of teams who's suffering of complete other problems than what might Stefan would see, basically. That's the same for me. So what I want to say by that, I have the same experience as Stefan has. So for me, a programmer, and that was actually my topic where I started with Claude, is you become a better programmer or faster programmer if you're a seasoned programmer, aka the software engineer.
Yeah.
And yes, in my opinion as well, in software engineer, because you pay this person for that, should be as efficient as possible. Of course, there is a process which often holds back. So when you talk about, hey, we have daily stand-ups in Scrum, and you post it on LinkedIn, you will see how many people say, get away with those meetings. We don't want to have this meeting, no more meetings, and so on. So this problem is real out there, but many companies simply don't have that because they are structured differently. So those both things exist, and it doesn't make sense, in my opinion, to constantly basically disrupt the others and saying, hey, that's not mine, or something like that. That doesn't make sense. So yes, both exist. And in my opinion, to give a conclusion, you should be in a place where you have clear boundaries between the people who make the high-level business requirements and the people who implement that as fast as possible with the help of AI today. Maybe in the future that comes closer together. Today it isn't. The world doesn't work like that, in my opinion. And so I think both of you are correct, but totally different ends of the spectrum. And what was interesting was that what Dennis was saying, use AI to fix the strategic problems. I have never used it like that. That was new for me, interesting to hear. And on the other hand, Stefan is right when he says that, and I see that myself. So I had a problem fixed yesterday, which I would have need 6 to 7 hours. I was planning 6 to 7 hours, was an older ticket. I have done it under 1 hour. Right. And of course that helps me to focus on 6 more hours for something else. I have now spare more time. So the entire process becomes faster and your board becomes basically cleaner sooner, and no matter which system you have. But you should fix both areas. So
I think that's
both
I think you
optimized.
gave a very good description of like what I couldn't express with Stefan when I was responding to Stefan's point, because I have seen this, right? So I have seen this process in teams that like have problems they're doing towards continuous delivery, but they have their natural dysfunctions. All teams have some form of like bottleneck, right? And they're adopting generative AI. And my findings is that I had the romantic, naive notion that this was going on. I had this bias. I wanted this to be the case. I wanted to say, yeah, like when they're doing Gen AI, this can be done. Like I get annoyed when somebody's not using hotkeys in their IDE, right? Like I understand what it's like to unnecessarily take more time to code something once you know what you need to code. And Gen AI helps with that. So like Claude, for example, helps with that. However, having worked with such teams, the when they start doing this, and I look at the data on their impact on the business outcomes, even though they felt like they were hugely productive, the outcomes in the business were negative. In most cases, this feeling of I feel hugely productive and the business making more money has either no correlation or a negative one. A negative one because in their productivity, the developers churn out more code, which means that if there's a dysfunction in turning code into business outcomes, then now you're creating more waste. Now you're creating a higher maintenance burden. If you have optimized the thing that is a liability in the business, which is code. Right? So that's where I'm coming from, is that I've seen the data, I've gone in with the same expectation of like, they're saying they're more productive, so I'm assuming it's more productive. I zoom out, I talk to the stakeholders, hey, your team is reporting that they feel more productive. Is the business more productive? They say, no, sales went down. So that's where I'm coming from. And I was baffled that this was the case. So I did some research. I talked to a lot of people, and everybody I talked to, and now, and I was skeptical. I was like, this must be an echo chamber. Like, this must be coach induced. This must be selection bias. It's just the companies we coaches work with. It must be the case. And I kept this belief until I saw the Doro report in October last year, and they had the similar findings on a very large sample size. Again, Claude wasn't as good in October last year, I have to say, than it is now. But my finding has been that, yes, for creating a form, I created a landing page on the weekend. I hate coding landing pages myself because it's a huge waste of my time. But with Claude, it like a few minutes. I love that. But then maintaining that, it like I saved a lot of time, but it didn't move the business far too forward. I just had time to do other things. Now, if the developer doesn't have any productive other things other than coding more other things, then I would categorize that as a waste. It wasn't helpful to code it faster because there is no higher leverage activity that the developer can do. Right? So if that's the case, if that's the dysfunction, if that's the bottleneck within the organization, and often it is, or they finish it and they don't roll it out, right? So the finished product that you're building with Claude, for example, it has to understand path to production, I think. That's my conclusion that I've gathered from seeing developers use things like Claude, is that if they feel super productive, then they should also match their code review, their deployment to production, getting feedback to that same level of productivity. Because otherwise, it's just a romantic sense of, I feel more productive, something about how I work as an engineer, I am experiencing less stress. But if that doesn't show on the actual business metrics, then there's a huge disconnect. And I'm just concerned about this disconnect, right? So I wouldn't say, yes, go Claude all in. It'll make you feel more productive. I'm not 100% that this is a net negative yet, a net positive yet. Stefan, the way I understood you're presenting this as a net positive because most things developers working on are commodity things, changing forms, changing data transformation, moving things, exception handling, UI updates. Those are commodity things that these Gen AI have been trained on. This is a solved problem in most languages, but most engineers don't have like the context for it that Claude has. So if a developer uses it, they will obviously be able to solve 90% of software tickets much faster. I think that was your point. And it would be, let's say, regretful not to use them all the time. I think like is that a fair summary of your point?
Stefan, let's go.
More or less, yes.
I think, in general, I would say it is a positive thing.
Mhm.
Just because if you do everything right, then you would need it. So that's the first thing. So when you have a business which is not capable of coming up with new ideas, with quick feedback loops, with the actual clients, with stakeholders, with users or something, or it doesn't get feedback from anywhere, and it's you wait for. I know companies like that. You wait for the correct requirements for weeks or months, and they basically put you a deadline of a week. There's so much wrong in those systems, right?
Mhm.
But that doesn't mean that this is or should be the thing where we are in. So
Mhm.
of course I want to highlight when you do things right. So our stream here, our tech journey is about doing things right. And I know that maybe Dennis, you were basically a little bit too much into the how many negative things are out there. That's true. That's your job to fix those things. I understand that. But Stefan, on the other side, he was on the side of a manager, of a leader. He was CTO himself at eBay,
Mhm.
at a subsidiary of eBay, and it was working on these things himself. He suffered from that himself. So he basically, and I know that from German companies, most German companies are really like, you are a programmer. The software engineer term doesn't exist here. So you are a
Mhm.
programmer, right? So people hire
Mhm.
you for this, so you should work in this. So the entire system works like this. So yes, it's a net positive here. But if you don't have that, and your engineers are in reality bound to whatever meeting tasks, helping others, or don't really get to the point what they actually need to do. And when they
Mhm.
have it done, they don't really know what the next thing, because it's nothing prepared. That is, for my understanding, a tactical and strategic big defect that needs to be solved in order to get to the point where you have a factory like thing where the engineers are connected to the strategic level. They work with the feedback. I do that myself. I work with clients and on code
Mhm.
at the same time, and AI helps me to be extremely more productive in that thing. So I am example for myself. Of course, I know how I'm function. I know I'm a high performer. I'm doing work hours like that's not healthy right now. Those kind of things, and that's where AI actually helps me, right? And
Mhm.
I know that. I know that this is. I understand when Dennis saying romantic, because yes, I often have a big fallacy, a cognitive error in my head, where I basically project myself into other people, and I think, why do they not do the same like me doing right now? So people simply cannot do that because of they are different persons, they are differently wired. It is simply like that. But in my opinion, we should, to sum it up, to fix the strategic layer with the CEO, with all the people up there, right? Making
Mhm.
sure that we don't have a gap between business and development. I'm always talking about that one. So that there's a fluent feedback loop, and you know what to do next, and there is good prioritization. We can use AI to that. That's a good idea. I really like the idea, and involve AI already on that point to
Mhm.
business intelligence research, requirement research, those kind of things, feedback loops. And sometimes you have feedback of 100 feedbacks a day. Of course, AI can help you with those things, right?
Mhm.
Prioritize them and find the interesting things for your business context. But we need to get to the point where Stefan's idea actually is, in order to be able to execute when we have those ideas. So both worlds need to be optimized and meet between operational and tactical level. That's my opinion about that. No? Cool. Now smile a little bit.
You raise a
That's
good
good
point
for the
regarding
thumbnail. Yeah.
you raise a good point regarding feedback loops, right? So,
Yeah.
you know, I think it will be healthy that if you're coding, let's say 100 times faster with Cloud, then your feedback loops also needs to speed up, because otherwise you're coding more stuff, like relatively speaking, at a lower feedback rate.
Then you need to set deadlines
And
for the business to actually give you requirements, which is vice versa.
I mean that if you're in a deadline run organization, that organization will always have deadlines. Like you'll just like it will fit itself to the problem. Like that's just bias. That's organizational bias. But I wonder, because we had exactly the same fallacy, right? When we started adopting continuous delivery, right? Continuous delivery, like the main selling point for continuous delivery, and even continuous deployment. I'm reading continuous deployment. Valentina has made a very good summary on trunk-based development. Actually, the book is about trunk-based development, not about continuous delivery, which is amazing, and slicing work. And the primary resistance to continuous delivery, continuous deployment was my customers don't need it that fast, right? And we see everybody essentially who has tried TBD, TDD, CD, both CDs, CI, from Dave Farley, to our friend Brian Finster, everybody's like, yes, that's what you think, but if there's an emergency, this is invaluable. And if every day is an emergency, and if you're running a high-stakes business that needs to innovate, then this is not optional. Your customers will want it faster if you can show them that they can do it faster. But the resistance to continuous delivery is that a business establishes a certain feedback loop. And the feedback loop only makes sense if the feedback includes the customer. So my reservation is that if the feedback loop for Claude is only the inner loop of, as Stefan, to use Stefan's example, from one stand-up to another, 24 hours pass, let's say 8 business hours in between. A developer has a ticket with Claude, they finish the ticket faster, or they finish more tickets, or they finish the same amount of tickets and they're less stressed. So they get to collaborate with their whatever, right? What I'm saying is that if you finish it much faster, like only measuring faster on the innermost loop in absence of the full value stream is, and I'm using this word deliberately, is I think naive, because we know better. We know from all areas of modern software engineering, of all the research that is as close to the scientific method as possible. We know that the only realistic productivity measure is actually time to customer, batch size, deployment frequency, and validating ideas. So it is the time to validate a new idea, assuming that you're wrong, assuming that what you're building is wrong, and that you need to validate that assumption as soon as possible. Yes, building it faster helps if you're rolling it out faster. If it doesn't, then the extra time you spend paying for Claude and setting it up and then just creating more inventory faster so that then you can deliver a larger batch size, that is a waste. And I'm not speculating here. We have data on this. And when we have conversations like this, I like bringing that data in. Because either the data is context dependent, which means that there's a learning opportunity here, or the data is wrong, or the data is obsolete because Claude has improved so much. Now, it could be the latter. I don't think I will be able to tell if that's the case, in which case this was very valuable. So I now need to check whether I'm wrong about this. Maybe Claude did get so good that this is no longer a problem, right? Because maybe it's solving that value bias earlier. But from a perspective of running an organization where building software is a main pillar, is a main value stream that is revenue building or revenue supporting, if it's a more IT, like a more German usage of the word IT, so it's tech supported or it's tech enabled rather than it being like a big tech company. It's the time to revenue capture that matters. So if you're building stuff faster, if you had one ticket from stand-up to stand-up, well, if you build it faster, it's still one ticket, right? So it's like the customer had to experience it as well, not just the developer. So if it takes 1 hour to fix a bug and it's previously it was 1 hour, which included 50 minutes of coding, and now it's 1 hour and it's 5 minutes of coding. I'm thinking, well, what's the other 45 now? Right? Because if it wasn't the main bottleneck, then it doesn't deserve as much attention as we give it. So I'm saying that if our attention span is limited, that maybe there's a bottleneck to focus on, and Claude might be a distraction. That's my perspective on this. And I could be wrong, and I understand that I could be. I'm often naive. I'm often a little bit too nailed down on my perspective, and I could be wrong. It's very likely I'm wrong about a lot of these things. And I apologize,
literally
Stefan,
spent the last 15 years in trying to keep up with the requirements as an engineer, as a CTO, as a developer, as a coder, programmer.
It's always slower than you would like.
And that's the first time now when I am on par and in so many things faster. I am basically on the wave and not running from it, right? And that is what stunned me so fast when I was sitting on that couch and made that video. And that was not a fake video. I was stunned. My brain was turning. I saw something changed in a fundamental way. That it basically, when you take a look at LinkedIn, YouTube, and all this kind of channels, the developers either go for Muse or resistance. There is no one in between. Because people suddenly realize that this is no joke anymore. And now they take vibe coding as a bad strawman and say, look, vibe coding is not working. Yes, today it's not working. But flow coding with AI is working very well, but people don't want to see that. And so you mentioned now several times that you might think that Claude is there. So I use it extensively. So I use it for really very complex tasks, which basically challenged me. And I wouldn't have even done it in the evening because my mental capacity was depleted already. And I have done those things. I do more sport now. I do more business thinking. I actually work on the product more. I have more time to actually be a founder while I still doing more than 6 hours of deliberate work on coding, but with way more output. And I have those, so I don't have these kind of problems you're saying, because I'm like the person who is continuously create new requirements together with a client. So we have more on the table than we actually can handle even with AI. So that is not the issue for us.
Yeah.
And I think many companies do so as well. And we need to become clear that AI will not only change coding, AI will change as well how fast the entire feedback cycle of a company will become. And that is, Stefan was pointing that out in his article with his, was it in the article or LinkedIn, with this Excel sheet, where you said this today, and then on some point in time, the CEO becomes the engineer, which is, of course, a future vision. In my opinion, it's a future vision. I don't know how he was pointing it out.
Yeah, that was the Claude, the compiler post, right? Like that this is another generation, like another layer. I think it's true,
but for the future. And we have now multiple transition steps, which you cannot foresee for the next years, because it is developing so fast. And we will see that every year is something different. And it will shake the foundation of the development. And it will shake the development, and it will totally put on a hat every company which starts to become into or get into the challenge where we actually need to compete with other companies who use that approach and will be so much faster than we are. That's the point. And that will even shake our good old German traditional companies who feel safe in their own bubble, right? But as soon as there are some people changing this, then even German companies who are very slow at software engineering, very good at engineering, but it's software engineering these days. They will understand this suddenly as well and need to adopt this very suddenly, as Europe adopts everything very suddenly because they suddenly wake up. And that is the same with that kind of things. And I think that is the conclusion of that story, is that, yes, we have we have a current status quo. We have a current view of the industry, and each of every one of us little bit different, right? But that will change. All of these things will change because the drive, the AI, even everyone, literally everyone, the neighbors, the non-tech people, everyone is using AI today. That was different 1 year ago.
Yeah.
1 single year. And that's what stuns me so much. What is in the next year then? In the next 2 or 3 years? How much money people put into AI development in general? They're the companies competing. Every week is another new prioritization table of which AI is the best one right now. So you can't even keep up with that. It's impossible. It is for the human impossible. And I think that this is the biggest challenge, and this is the reason why we as human beings will have problems to follow. We will argue. We will argue so much more in the next days and weeks and months to come about these kind of things, because we know things change, and that triggers our biggest and mother of all fears, the resistance of change, the fear of change.
But see, the thing is,
so many people.
I think we're already past that. Because I don't think engineers are resistant.
We never
to
pass
AI.
resistance. We never pass this fear. Believe me.
No, but
We
I
never.
don't think like there's a. I don't think there was a huge resistance to AI.
Oh, there is. Just
Because-
maybe not in your bubble, but in my bubble.
No, but what I'm
people
saying
are
is,
daring
of course,
right now to start
course
to
there are
admit that they
people who
use
are,
it.
of course there are people who are against it, or people who are just old-fashioned, or they just like their workflow and they're not quite ready to learn something new. But as far as the early adopters go, as far as widespread adoption goes, general adoption, like it started in software, the rate at which it spread to other industries, I don't see any resistance. Like when you say resistance, what I'm thinking of is introducing version control to a team that doesn't use version control. Like the rate, like how slowly people went from CVS to SVN to Git, and then sort of getting over now how do we resolve conflicts, and what tool are we going to use, and do we need to learn this concept, like the command line for Git, or is there like is the graphical tool just as good as far as AI is concerned? I don't see much resistance. I see a lot of people like being fenced on what they're using it for, not using it for, Copilot versus free, Claude versus like agentic versus non-agentic. I think like even I'm using AI for everything. I'm using AI for planning my week, for what I eat, to what I code, how I coach, how I transcribe, how I reason. When I journal, I run my journal through the AI. It's like, hey, did I miss something? Like, am I being biased today? And also about the lead gen, for example, Stefan mentioned a great example that I agree with regarding OCR. It's very easy to say, hey, I met these 40 people. I think they're fit into like 2 categories, potential clients, friends and family, and other coaches. Can you just, based on like these 3 columns, can you help me like color them? Like that is a 2-minute problem for an AI. And it can do so from a screenshot.
Sorry to interrupt. I need to move on. I have another meeting coming up.
Okay.
So thank you for having me. And then, as always,
Thanks
have a good time. Bye.
You too, Stefan. Ciao,
Bye-bye,
Stefan.
Stefan.
Thanks for coming. Right, so from the perspective of it being used, it being adopted, tools being sort of rolled out daily in the entire ecosystem, I wouldn't say there was a lot of resistance. Yes, there's a lot of naive use. I agree with that. When I'm pairing with people, when I'm having workshops, the most prominent naive use that I see is not the way you use Claude. The most naive use of AI that I see is people using something like Copilot X, and rather than prompting, they pause when they're typing and they get the AI autocomplete. And that is a complete waste of time most of the time, right? Like, but that was for early adopters to build confidence. But if you're then not prompting it, like if you're not using if the agent has access to your code base and you're not talking to the agent, then I think then that's a missed opportunity.
What I mean by resistance, maybe resistance is something very, very fundamental in every human being. So there is always resistance. In you is resistance, in me is resistance. We fight that. The more muse you have, the more resistance you have. And people see that there is a drive in society, in the development bubble, which is large, which is huge, right? So everyone in the news, so there is a inductive thinking, a social inductive thinking that AI is the new norm, and that change is still a big problem and will probably stay a big problem because no one really knows what will happen in 1, 2, or 3 years. The people who are not finding a job right now, they try to learn AI because they're panicking, because they think AI is the only way to get back into a job. And
you think that's not the case?
What do you say?
You think that's not the case?
I think it is. It's a necessity on some point in time.
Would you hire an engineer who refuses to use AI?
No.
But that's my
would
point.
Fire a engineer who
refuses and says, I don't want to learn this
person. I would
yes,
think twice about that.
I agree, and I think that's completely reasonable.
Because we have, so I'm an entrepreneur primarily, so I care about money and paying salaries.
But that means that the engineers need to know AI.
Of course.
So it's not a panic. Like, this is the reality.
Yeah. But what I mean by that is that what I want. Okay, I was quickly a little bit. Yeah, people who don't find a job, they try to use those technologies, of course, right? They need to even invest because they're quite expensive.
To fake their experience.
But how I say?
To fake their experience.
No, in my head. I have some experience. Some people right now who are experienced and seeking.
Oh, you mean like deep fakes and things like that?
No, I really mean like engineers with good experience, but they simply don't find a job anymore because of the job market. Right? That's what I'm thinking. So they panic because they look for reasons, and then they think correctly that AI might really help them, even though it is not a guarantee. But on the other hand, we have a lot of traditionals. So the most developers on this market are still traditionals, and not by generation. What I mean is they think in a traditional non-AI flow code way. So we have the AI flow code and non-AI flow code. The flow code is basically what we had before. So we're doing the thing we do as a human to get things to the point where it needs to be. And people still think, especially the people who call themselves I am the software craftsman, right? There's this idea of I'm a craft. I totally disagree. I don't think software is a craftsmanship. I'm a craftsman. I started as a real craftsman for another domain, and I know what craft is. It is an enclosed thing which you learn, and you have some stages, and that's it. That's craft, right? But development, especially as a software engineer, the mindset must be to understand zeitgeist, to understand what's necessary, to understand these ever changing things on the market. And you need to be able to adapt to those as an engineer. This is your actual job, to help the company, your product, to adapt to the market needs as quickly as possible, to stay on par as good as possible, or even be before the wave. And if you can't do that, you are out. That's nothing to do with craft, right?
I think that, you mentioned craft, right? Like, if it's not a craft, like it's either a science or an art or a hobby, and of these things, it's somewhere between science and craft. There are elements of engineering in
the point of AI is why there is resistance. The craft point is at danger for the people who believe too strong in craft. This is what I want to say.
But that's what I mean when I say romantic, right? Like when I say that there's like this romantic idea of I am doing the coding, that is the let's say the one aspect of why somebody would not want to use AI because they want to be in control.
And that will of course change. I'm totally agree.
Or the other way around. Vibe coding is the other end of this romance, right? It's like I I don't need to touch the keyboard anymore. I can just talk to the computer Star Trek style, and it just creates everything that I can imagine.
That
in
is
my
a
mind.
future vision which will become true on some point in time, maybe differently than we think today. But today we have the
Like
challenge
today,
of,
that's not viable. We know that that's
no,
not
it's not.
viable.
I can't. I every time I do that, so you can, and I still preparing this article and video. I don't come to that because I have so much to do. But you get so the let's say you fall so quickly from flow coding with AI into vibe coding if you are not disciplined, because
Yes,
you think,
yes.
oh, I just do that. I can't be bothered right now. That's when you start to accept,
So-
and it becomes more black box than you might want to have it. And that is what people then on the crafting area say, look, that is what is bad. That's true, but there's a discipline.
What I noticed, and I need some more. This is a new idea. I need some more research on this. Using Claude feels like gambling. It's triggering a lot of dopamine receptors. Right? So using Claude feels like a slot machine. You know? It's like, oh yeah. Tap, 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 tap. And you're using your credit card. Right? So there's the aspect of money, you're spending your time. It's a very relaxing activity where you can forget about time. Work is being done so that like there's that potential for reward. So I'm worried that Claude and that kind of agentic like vibe coding, that's just gambling.
It is.
I'm seeing addiction behaviors related to like research from casinos, specifically One Armed Bandit, and I'm seeing that in secondhand. I'm observing, let's say, similar effects where people say, "Oh no, this makes me super productive," and I'm thinking, well, what if this is just an addiction response, and we're deluding ourselves, and it's actually slowing us down, right? Because that's my main concern here. Like, you know, I'm looking at it from like a broad perspective of the health of the organization, as a life coach as well, as an agile coach, as an engineer, as a solopreneur. I'm like, well, it has to be productive. So if it's productive, it has to be productive on main business metrics, not just on how much code I can generate. Plus, it has to be healthy and sustainable, right? So if it means that I'm saving my time, well, hang on, you're still paying money to get access to Claude. I saw you texted me twice that, hey, it's not, oh, I hit the limit. I need to pull up my credit
constantly
card.
hit limits. I set
hit
those,
my
those
limit.
$20 limits, and bam,
and
they're gone, right?
And you know where I saw that? That is the exact same behavior people have that have a sex addiction with Tinder. It's like, I can't swipe anymore. If I pay, I get more swipes. And that's exactly the same dopamine response people get in the casino. It's like, you're out of chips.
If you use it wrong. If you use it wrong.
But my point is, if it is not provably generating positive business outcomes, and I'm saying now the trap might be that sometimes it does, right? Sometimes it does. Like that. That's why this is so difficult. That's why the conversation with Stefan was also so difficult, because I agree. Like the example Stefan used makes sense. If I want to build Minesweeper, I won't build it because I know how little value it is to me and how much time it takes me. So I won't even build it. But with Claude, it's a fun activity and I can build it in a few minutes and it will work and I don't have to debug it, which is really annoying, right? So I will do it. But is that 100% of all use cases that you would need a software engineer for? Or half? Or 10%? Or 1%? Because if it's only 1% or 10%, and it's impacting the full life cycle of a developer's, let's say, 6-hour coding in a day, if it's having little benefit and it's impacting the entire day, that would be concerning. Because I've seen a lot of positive results, I've seen a lot of negative results. I see companies that are constantly saying, hey, time to market is a lot faster. Time to market is faster.
With
when
AI,
we're doing
you
time
mean?
to with AI, yes. Like time to market for a startup is essentially, I need a landing page, I need my basic features. AI helped us do that. Cool, but then once you're on the market, how do you differentiate yourself? What is the maintenance burden? Were you able to keep up with technical debt? Were you able to keep up with, like, what is now the bottleneck, right? Because from a perspective of what the engineers do, I would say you can't possibly be productive in a code base you don't understand. It's an assumption that I have. If you don't understand the code base, you can't be
You
productive.
can't be productive.
You can refactor, you could potentially move things around, maybe reconfigure them, but ultimately you have to like go against your stress response of potentially breaking something, because that then allows you to build your experience with the code base. If Claude is short-circuiting that and is sort of helping you make progress in such a code base, what's the ceiling of that? And how expensive is it?
Now that would be then to actually vibe coding in a black box. So you wouldn't learn
Yes, exactly,
the code base
exactly.
yourself. You would
And you wouldn't
start
gain
to
the
work
confidence.
on the code base,
Yeah.
base, on the
And you
code
wouldn't gain
base.
on the
No.
cloud base. Yeah,
On the cloud base, right?
Yeah.
It's basically the same with Windsurf and
Yeah,
Cursor,
yeah.
right? So you just simply trust the AI, and the AI need to fix what the AI create, because
Look,
it
my
becomes
reality-
more and more non-human readable code.
My reality is there's devs, they do a ticket, and they're like, oh, deploying takes a long time and I need to wait for review. I'm blocked.
Mhm.
So I'll go do another ticket. That's one team. Another team is they're doing continuous delivery, they're mobbing all the time. Their attention span is already maxed out, so there's no space for an agent. They're talking constantly, there's a mob, 3 people, 2 are pairing, 2 keyboards, 2 screens, no space for an AI. Maybe for some quick auto-suggest. Maybe for the summary of the meeting, for recording it. Right? That's my reality. And for the first example, where somebody says, oh, I will deploy the staging and then do the next task, and then QA will let me know tomorrow. If they're now doing their job faster, if the bottleneck was how many tickets go from QA to deploy to production, then them feeling that they're more productive because they can churn out more tickets, and this is now a net negative. Because now they've just created more inventory.
Yeah, but that should be that's one of what I think is that should be mitigated by the management and leadership.
I agree.
I
agree.
That's
But that needs to be mitigated even prior to AI adoption.
Yeah. This is
Right,
what
so-
I meant.
And if they're not mitigating it,
yeah.
And if they're not mitigating it, then they also won't after AI adoption.
Exactly. So,
Right. So if their primary concern was that, hey, why is our software engineering team so slow? Why is so little stuff getting through QA? And if they start, well, if it will go faster if you adopt AI, the data shows that it'll actually slow them down.
yeah, of course.
So-
in that
so-
moment, you need
So
to
if I'm
remove
here
defects
talking about
first,
AI and
big
I'm giving
ones.
advice about AI usage, I want to mention this example as well. I don't just want to talk about the positive stuff.
Yeah.
Especially when
that's for sure. That's for sure.
Especially when the DORA research backs is finding out that
Exactly. So
that
if you have a
the
traditional
dopamine kick, the dopamine kick of coding faster tends to bias developers to building larger batches. And then they lose confidence in, do we need to review this? Like, is this stable? Ooh, this
so I
is a
wouldn't
lot.
call these people engineers. That's another point of mine. So
But you see, you did this as well. When you showed me the video of what you did in that weekend, you felt super productive. But then at the end, you said, "Oh, but I reverted everything because I got carried away." And I started biting too much.
That was for video purpose. I never have repeated that in the last
I know,
2 weeks.
but it's still a realistic example.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, I'm 100% there that I say that vibe coding is not a thing. Maybe in 10 years today, totally impossible to implement it as a standard in the market. AI is necessary. It is a mandatory thing to understand that. So
I agree.
You need to, as an engineer today, as a full engineer, you should understand how to program yourself. That's still necessary. But you should understand that we started a transition to go to a point somewhere in a decade probably where the human readable aspect of code is no more. So we then don't fix engineers the code of
That was Stefan's post. That was Stefan's post.
but
we don't
Stefan is-
need that we
Stefan
don't
is
need
like
the source
it's
code.
already today.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah,
not
that we
mine.
don't
So
need the
he's-
source
yeah.
code. The source code was only necessary to translate the requirements to an engineer, so the engineer could translate it for the compiler. And Stefan's point is that we can just do that with the requirements and skip the source code. That we can sort of skip that step where the source code is happening and just have the AI do that. And we no longer need to manually inspect the source code. Like that is the ideal with vibe coding. That I don't need to know the source code. I'm just working with the binary and with an AI that understands how to make modifications to the binary. That would be an amazing end goal if the resulting code can also be modularized and sort of reasoned about and sort of taken apart and sort of like if you give me a 3D printed car, I might still want to replace the engine. You know, like the compartmentalization that we need to reason about a complicated problem, that is still necessary, even if the AI doesn't need it.
Even if that might be then in 20 years another thing, but let's don't assume that, but because we can't predict what happened there. But it is so important to understand. I think the key question is, and the reason why you were both arguing, in my opinion, is, and that was what I was experiencing it myself, is the fact that we have started the transition now, and that is what makes so this is this earth-shaking event here, and most people are not aligned what this journey actually is, and that's where I was talking about the resistance. And many people resisting, they're saying that's garbage output. 1 hour of coding is 10 days of debugging for a human, which is not true. And those kind of maybe with ChatGPT in a chat client or something, maybe, yeah. If you close your eyes and take it, maybe, yeah. But that's still your fault to take it, right?
I agree with you, and I might be naive on this. I'm very naive on this, probably. I think coding is not the best place to use AI in a engineering team. I think that was like the root cause, like the root analysis of my argument with
in mid-sized plus companies, yes. In startups, definitely no.
Yes, so I think maybe we didn't contextualize enough.
In a startup,
because I think
you need fast, right?
I see so many. Yes, but you need fast, but you also need small scope. If you're doing large,
you can have both at the same time.
Yes, but if you're doing large scope very fast, then that's not healthy for a startup. I coach them, I know, right? So
yeah, of course, but large scope. So that's the next thing we need to define.
Fast in a startup is only good.
Yeah.
If it results in sooner to market. If it results in more features to market, that was definitely a net negative for the startup. Because it's an experiment, so they don't know that it's worth building. And if they have built it, then they need to maintain it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Right.
But
so like the math on that
that's
is
a
very
different
simple.
problem. So if you just build something because you like to build it, that's a different problem.
If somebody has an unrestrained appetite for a large backlog in a startup, which is a lot of startups, if you can go through that backlog faster, I don't think that's a positive. Because if you can't prioritize, if you can deliver everything, you're just delivering a bigger mess in the same time as you did before. And you will always be able to like just fill that gaping pit and just say, okay, we need more. Now we're so fast, we need more. Why isn't this working? Why isn't our company success? And you just increase the leverage factor of the feature factory.
Yeah, but if you do it right, on the other hand, you have mentioned we have talked about two extremes. But there is another.
If you do it
in
right,
a very good feedback cycle, you need the performance to keep up with the small feedbacks. You're given your features, people say great, you deliver on the next one. And if you can reduce the time for that feature to come, for that feedback loop to actually happen, because very often it takes ages until this feedback loop is done by the developers. And I think that was the point of Stefan as well. And
Yeah.
that is where AI really helps you. And I would always disagree if that would be doubted, because I actually see that firsthand, those hands, how that actually is the case.
So in
Yeah.
order for Stefan's scenario to make sense and what you're describing, you will have to have a single priority. You'd have to have full confidence that your single priority is correct.
Yes.
And your appetite for trying something new must be so like high pressure that you would want it coded as soon as possible because you're ready for the next experiment.
Yeah.
And for a startup, for a small company, I think that's completely natural. But I don't think that's scalable. Like the effect of using AI to solve this problem, I don't think this scales. I have not seen any evidence that this scales to a large organization. Like, for example, what you're describing can be solved with 2 Claude agents. If you solve this for a team of 5 and 2 Claude agents, I think if you scale this to a team of 20, you still get the effect of just the 2 Claude agents, even if you're using 10 or 20 Claude agents. Because there are other bottlenecks even just a slightly larger organization size. Unless they're building 4 different products, which then might be the differentiating factor, right? So that maybe they can like compete.
I would rephrase that. So what I see, which is a problem right now, is not everyone can actually use Claude Code, not because of restrictions, simply because of the environment they have worked. So they have built things which were made to be done in an AI. So that is very often tied with multi-service backends, where you have so many integrations.
Non-monorepo.
Exactly.
Not everything is in one place. Context is difficult.
And even if you want to, and you put all the context into Claude, it's basically the context is already full in that.
Yeah, like the organizations that have code bases that are sluggish and token inefficient, right? Like it's very difficult to get the entire project into a
they
token
are
space.
Difficult for humans as well. It's not only for the
I agree.
And I see that when you have a very good, let's say, monolithic code base or a part of an application like the front
easier
end,
to reason
which is traditionally monolithic with things like Next.js, Vite, or Svelte or something like that. It is you can work inside that. It works very well. It is extremely efficient. As soon as that you have outside things which you need to, there you have the idea with MCP service, those kind of things to connect all these kinds of things. It's not working that well yet, let's say.
See, I'm coming from this place of the things that you describe that AI needs in order to give you a productivity boost, the humans need as well.
Yes.
Smaller cognitive load, clear requirements, quick feedback, experimentation, patience, lots of sleep, being well rested, being patient with trying something new, reverting safely, so committing on checkpoints. All of these things that make Claude usage effective would also make a developer effective.
That's the point.
So if you haven't done these things in 20 years, you're also not going to do it for AI. That's where I'm coming from. Like, if you didn't do it for yourself, you won't do it for an AI as well.
That is what causes this big resistance of the people.
Yes, and what I'm saying is that if you're in a dysfunctional environment, increasing the velocity is probably a net negative. That's where I'm coming from.
So, ja, klar. Sorry, yes.
Ja, klar.
Ja, klar. No, no, but it's like, that is what I was referring to the resistance. There are so many people who simply cannot imagine to work with that like that.
People ask me, Dennis, we don't have tests. We have the CI/CD pipeline. Should I automate it? And I'm like, no. If it doesn't work well, right, if the process is not very good, don't automate it. Because it will be harder to change. Right? Like, that's like a common fallacy of, our tests are not automated right now. It's like, well, are your tests good? Like, are they worth running? Because if they're not worth running, let's fix that first. Let's create tests that are worth running. Let's run them manually. And when running them manually becomes the bottleneck, let's automate them. And have a similar thought process for Claude. It's like, is the code you are writing, you, Adrian, the human, good? Do you know how to write good code? No. Okay, then don't use Claude. Learn to write good code so that you know what to prompt Claude, and then automate the code writing. Right? Or even better, use Claude as an educational tool to teach you, and then learn together. That I agree with. That we didn't get to talk about too much.
That's one of these topics. The only way where I can see where juniors actually effectively work with code, with Claude, is to actually not work on code for a while. Instead, make training again a thing, like it was in the past.
Do interactive katas rather than having katas. Just have an AI agent run them through the kata and see what they stumble upon, and then give them instant feedback.
Training needs
that would be amazing.
Training needs to be a thing again, and competency. So we never talk about AI competency, how to actually work effectively.
We have an episode for that.
I know. That's extremely important. No one talks about these kind of things, and that is why we have so many different aspects and opinions out there. And the resistance of change will never fade away in the next years will not fade away, because what you just said is completely true. So by the way, we still have projects where we maintain legacy things from 15 years old now, right? I built them myself 15 years ago, or was part of the team building that. And we can't leverage AI there, really, because they are so scattered across so many different technologies and federators and whatnot, right? That you really, the AI is not really helping you, because the most time we spend on these systems is to understand why they fail sometimes, and then try to implement a fix somehow. But it is most often not in a typical code base. There is no CI/CD pipeline. There is like fixing something in an open heart.
I completely agree with you. Agree with you, because I see, you know what? I see that Claude to me is not a high priority, because I've seen the other use cases. I've seen use cases where people take open telemetry logs that are 200 pages of logs, and they cram them into an AI, and they tell me, okay, give me the anomalies, and like, I'm debugging this. Is the root cause to be found in the logs? And it spits out an answer. That is amazing. Same thing with project management. When I'm coaching somebody on like how to slice up work, one of the first things I teach them is I either tell them, read this book, or read this book and I will give you a prompt. And the prompt will help you follow through a process, a flow, where the prompt and a little bit of my guidance helps you slice up the work better. Because if you're planning a large batch, it will be built in a large batch, it will be deployed in a large batch, and it will have all the problems of a large batch. So if the AI can help you slice up the work better, if people, in a way that will be sensible to your developers so that they won't resist it, and if you learn how to do that, then that's great. Same thing with code reviews. You have somebody on the team who constantly gatekeeps. Well, feed their responses to the AI and ask for feedback. It's like, how should I respond to this person? Can you implement the changes that this person wants? Like, help me understand why this person is giving me this feedback. Right? AI in code reviews, AI in project management, summarizing meetings. Hey, I met with a startup, a founder. She is building a startup where she is getting transcripts from meetings, and the AI is figuring out how effective the meeting was, what the temperature in the meeting was, how heated it got, and the improvement points on how to make the meeting more productive. Plus, it like filters out all of the non-productive stuff from the meeting and produces action points. That is amazing, right? Like, you have like a sprint planning that derails and becomes a 3-hour shot fest. If you haven't, because you've seen that happen, right? And it's a similar vibe than we just had, Stefan and I, right? Like, it's coming from the same level of passion and a little bit of stubbornness and a little bit of like
being human.
Being human, exactly. Yeah, right. And if you can have an AI in the background that says, "Hey, I noticed the conversation got a bit heated today. Here's some feedback if you're ready to take action on it. If not, here's the main points. Right? And that is super useful. Or if I'm recording a meeting for somebody who is not there and I'm sick and you give me a 3-hour recording, I don't have 3 business hours to watch a 3-hour business meeting because I might as well just have it again. But with an AI, I can have the AI summarize the meeting, the video, like
in 3 or 4 sentences, which is often
in 3 or 4 sentences, and it will
wrap up this entire conversation today in 3 or 4 sentences. And
I think it's going to be more than 3 or 4 sentences. I mean, we will
you
have our
can
AI
wrap
do
it
that.
up into those. I don't see you get every aspect. Then you need
No,
to
like
watch
it is
fully.
lossy. Like it is lossy compression. Like I agree with you on that. But the interesting thing is that we can keep the raw transcript, the raw recording, and then keep extracting information from it later. Like we can look back on this conversation 3 months from now and say, "Oh, didn't we have a conversation about this on that video?
I
Where
do that
was
constantly with Descript.
I do that constantly. I love it. Right? It's like having my own material. I now feed my recordings on Slack because I send video messages. It's like, I talked about this. What is a good example of this from my coaching? And it finds it. And it's amazing. Right? But these are all the prominent uses of AI that work today already. Helping you stay focused, helping you prioritize, helping you not get distracted, helping you plan your meals, helping you. Sometimes I give it a screenshot of my calendar. It's like, hey, oops, this week's too busy. Help me clear out 3 hours on Wednesday. And the AI will tell me, okay, it looks like you need to move this meeting. It seems like this meeting will be the easiest to move. I have created a draft for the email that you can send this person. Right?
Mm-hmm.
This is amazing usage of AI. And I think to developers, all of these tools are available. How to plan. I see developers write Git messages. And they're like commit messages for Git. I'm like, you don't need to write commit messages anymore.
Just
somebody
does it for you.
No, but even that you don't need. Because the person reading the commit message also has JetBrains. So when they're ready to look at your commit, they can ask JetBrains, their JetBrains from today, to summarize what you did with more information and more context.
You can already read this, but still you have the barrier to read this. So it makes sense that AI is still doing that.
But my point is, rather than having a human written Git history, as I'm typing in Git log, the AI can just parse the commits and just generate a log for me.
We're moving in general away from human things anyway. So the entire code level, getting back to the crafting area, right? It won't be a craft anymore. It will be an engineering thing where we have a machine doing the implementation. It's like machining. So you don't do if you create a blade today, it will be done by a machine in a better quality than you could do it by hand, right? Even though people like to say, oh, it is so traditional and it's better. No, it's actually, there are ways to make it better with a machine. And it's faster and you can produce more and you can focus on the feedback cycle and you have every year a new type of that blade, right? While in crafting, you still sit on your old legacy system. I know that myself. I've done that for so many years. And these are the things I don't miss. I will miss to code in the future, in the far future, probably not in the next years. I will still do that because time is.
You're busy enough,
right? No, it's like we are all humans, and there are so many developers and companies and people and whoever are stakeholders of these processes. It will take time, but it will happen. That's the point, and we need to understand that the part of the craft will become more like. Think more upfront. What will happen? What will be the outcome? And
that's
then
the whole point.
Be able to review quickly. Most developers still aren't really good reviewers because they don't.
I agree, and they don't need to be. They can have AI help with that. Like CodeScene just launched a full AI product for free, by the way, as an upsell, and not even as a free add-on to their code reviewing tool. Right? It already helped them like statically analyze hotspots and team dynamics. It's like, hey, this person who wrote these, the person who wrote the critical payment controller is apparently no longer with the company, which means that every line that they have touched, that knowledge has escaped the business.
Mhm.
So I'm marking that code as a hotspot. CodeScene has been able to do this as
Before.
static analysis without AI. Now you have AI that sort of understands, hey, I'm in a rush, I'm doing a hotfix, and it can sort of reason about, okay, which rules are important, which rules are less important. This is an expedited hotfix, it needs to go out, it's an incident response, and it can help you reason and maybe loosen or strengthen linter rules, or even give you suggestions.
Yeah.
You know, one of the best things I can do with AI is I can say, I accidentally double booked a client. And the AI says, no problem. Do you want me to write a quick email? And the unexpected follow-up from that is, this is a common issue in Calendly when you're doing this and this and this. Here's the link to the settings page where you can turn that off. And that's like, yes, thank you. Like, that's exactly what I wanted. Now, I didn't give it access to my Calendly page, but it knows I use Calendly. Right? I've prompted it enough.
I
Had
have
to go.
I have
This is
I
super-
have I
we
have
have-
access to Substack Live on Landscape.
Oh, finally.
I was during you were have this
Yeah.
conversation between each other. I
Yeah.
was texting and then somehow it works. So
Awesome.
you will see.
So
it in
next time we can
Substack.
try it with dual mode,
must-
and hopefully it'll allow us to do double portraits to Substack. And maybe then
let's
Substack
just
can
see. Maybe we need to have.
Yeah.
Let's see. Probably.
Yeah.
I could offer restream then. Then we can have a unified chat.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe we need that,
Let's
yeah.
take a look into that. Okay. So in 1 minute, you wanted to wrap up an hour ago.
It was a fun show. It was a fun show
Was
today.
it?
Yeah, it was fun. I'm glad we're doing a little bit more AI.
It's so
'Cause
important, actually.
I've been a bit bearish on AI. It's like, okay, like I'm not gonna adopt it. But then I started using it more. Like, I was very careful with it. I was very risk averse with it. So I created a lot of guardrails to sort of, I didn't want to leak any private conversations. I didn't want to leak any like private information. I don't want it to have access to like my important stuff. Like, I don't want AI to have access to my Google Drive. I don't want AI to have access to my Notion. I don't want to give ChatGPT access to everything, because it's like one security incident and it's like bye-bye. Right?
Yeah.
So it took some time. So then Descript came out. Then Substack now has AI, their own agent. Like, it doesn't need access to my stuff. It has access of my stuff that I already stored there. So I don't need to give it more access than it needs. And I like that. I kind of like that, right? So same thing with Notion. Like, I don't want it to give it my ChatGPT key and then access to my machine. But if it's the other way around, I feel a little bit more like that it's compartmentalized. You know, like, I don't want these agents sort of getting out of control without my oversight, without my knowledge. Like, I'm super aware, I'm super conscious of that. So I was very slow. I was an early adopter in ChatGPT. I tried everything. It was kind of meh. And then I said, okay, I need to focus on my business. This is a distraction. And then I didn't. And now that I'm focusing on my business, now that I've optimized a lot of stuff, now I'm slowly adding a little bit of AI here, or an agent here, a routine. Let's say I have a routine that says, hey, these are my goals. My goals have changed. This is feedback from last week. Summarize it. Give me some pointers, and let's continue the week.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been super productive for me. Very, very productive. So again, I feel more productive. That doesn't mean that there is an actual linear correlation with business productivity from my feeling.
I still
of
have to
productivity.
implement features today, because I thought we're just having 1 hour of a stream. Now I need
Just have
to
Claude do
fill
it.
up my Claude credit
Just put it in-
card a little bit, and then I'm good to go.
Yeah,
again.
just swipe. Just swipe the cloud base.
The Claude base.
Yeah, just
I
keep
don't want.
swiping right
I
on
don't
Claude.
want it to become a Claude base. I really need to stream more about.
I think
how
it's too late for that. I think
No,
your
no.
excitement, the passion, and because you're
But the
super
Claude
busy.
base is a black box. This is what I. Maybe we have different.
Yes, but you're
opinions
super
what it is.
busy. But you're super busy, right? So if it helps, I think, knowing you, I think if it helps you conserve your time is more precious than a little bit of quality loss on the code base. So if it helps you
Quality
conserve your...
isn't that bad. It is
See,
different.
I told you. So
Yesterday, I have done something new. We lacked in a product. We lacked API tests, so we didn't have API tests there. And I was thinking about that for several days, and then I thought to myself, so I have my evening tea here. So what can I do with my laptop on my kitchen table while my kids are already asleep, right? And I was doing half an hour of prompting, right, of planning, talking to ChatGPT. I talked. It's about GraphQL testing. What some behavior stories of GraphQL that they actually work because they are quite complex. And I basically took the typical thing that I decided for VTest in that case. It took me. I think it was $7.50. And in a half an hour, we had a total complete suite, which is running in the CI/CD pipeline and which is covering 3 of the most important things. And I was stunned again when I took a look at the review. So before I basically pushed it, I reviewed it completely.
It exposed you to tools, to libraries.
And it did so much for me because I told that take a look at we do that actually in the front end because this is where I have Claude, so I needed to use it there because context would be too large. And I said, I told that to Claude, you see what we actually do in the front end. So I was assuming already this will be an expensive prompt because I told that take a look at the code base. So that is extremely expensive right now. But it can do that, right? It can even do that spanning over session to session. It can do that. That's quite interesting. And then it basically took a look in how we work with products in our product. And it was basically working out all these patterns and asking me, I was, going back and forth. And then we came to a conclusion where I was sitting there and was saying, I would have done something like that, not in that detail. That's the point, because I don't have the time to do that in detail. But this thing was basically writing it down like a machine doing that. And I was thinking that can't be good. Still this idea of garbage code. It isn't. It wasn't garbage code. A little bit, let's say, comments. Comments is a new thing because we tend to have, why so many comments? Yes, because the AI want to understand why this is there.
Yeah,
so
it's for debugging
AI is,
for reprompting later.
You can't tell Claude Code to remove comments. I tried that so often. You can't because it wants to have this comment there.
It's the same thing with the M dash with ChatGPT. Like I can tell it not to use the M dash, and it keeps putting the M dashes.
But that's the point.
I don't know why, but it's just.
I was so what I made wrong, which I probably could have done it better with half of the money spent, was to think better. So I always think to myself, look. That was the resistance coming up. Everyone does have resistance. I was telling, look, Claude was doing something wrong. The first test was entirely against mocks. And I thought to myself, I have told you that there is basically an API endpoint. And then basically I saw that it built in a switch between mocks. So for offline mode.
It was a stepping stone to get verification from you that is doing the correct thing.
Exactly. But
I
reread the prompt because I have a history of my own prompts, which I store in my actual IDE. Yeah. And I was looking back and I saw that it was a fault of mine. I wasn't describing it. So if I would have described that to a human being, the human being, if it would be a stranger to me, which Claude is, it's a stranger. It's not my colleague I know for 10 years, right?
Yeah.
So if I would, just a new engineer first day sitting next to me and probably would be the same thing.
Well,
this person thinks maybe I do mock now. But I want to have the real database, which is running in Docker locally.
But it requires some patience, some experimentation, and then reprompting from you, right? So it requires supervision.
Exactly. And the reason for those tests is... No, go ahead.
No, it's okay.
Okay. The reasons for those tests is that you want to have... There are several caches involved. There are several queues involved. There are databases involved, services involved, and all these kind of things. They will be changed. And at some point in time, that you wanna find those edge cases. And even if you have an error, you don't want to have this error 2 times in a row or something like that, or ever again in the future. So you need to have these kinds of tests.
Yeah, and
in this particular system, they weren't existing.
And if those tests are low quality right now, they prevent refactoring because they're using too many mocks. then you can also delete all of them, fix the system with other tests, and then just have Claude reprompt and just have regenerate. Like this is what you're describing is essentially snapshot testing, right? So snapshot testing exists as a methodology, and I'm sure Claude was trained on it, but it's not very popular with software engineers because
it's really
requires
shallow, right?
It's very shallow, yeah, and it requires a little bit of reasoning of, oh, there's a lot of data exports to review, and some of them have noise.
What I've
you need
done
to become a data scientist to like clean up the data so that you don't have any snapshots that are irrelevant, or Emily Bache calls this acceptance testing, right? Where you're using stringified inputs and outputs for an existing system to test cover it outside in. And a mechanical tool does not produce a very reliable output, but an AI that checks the mechanical tool's output and sort of reasons about it, I think that's exactly what Claude did. And at least that's what it sounds like.
Yeah,
I would love to go into a little bit more detail about that, but let's wrap up. It's 7 p.m.
Yeah, but I just wanted to say that last thing to that is I let create for every of these subcontexts, like GraphQL testing in that case, translations, we have a lot of automated translations. I have a document in the root, and every time I put into the prompt the documentation where they shall read from and write back.
Yeah.
So, and I saw that, I just took a look at the history. I just saw that in the beginning it was writing inside their mocks. I wasn't seeing that. And it was assuming that's correct because I was saying, okay,
yeah,
right? I was a bit too fast there maybe. And then now it's clearly important, first sentence, important, we exclusively use real GraphQL queries and mutations for testing against testing environment. Yeah. And that is, and we strictly avoid mocking GraphQL. When you have this in place, I pretty know Claude so much.
That's what you're testing.
Exactly, like, it will never do that again, right? Because
you're testing the configuration and the wiring up of the real schema, not the code underneath it, right? So you would want it to hit.
You really need to do those kind of. Those are agreements between humans and AI. This is how I call them. You need to create those files for every context you have, so that all humans and all AIs working on the same context layer. This is how This is what I want to point out in my article and video when I come to it. Hopefully this week.
But you can come to it if we wrap up now.
Goodbye.
Yeah. Goodbye.
Thank you for being there. There are quite a lot of people on Substack. 22. Are they still there? Do you see that?
No, I think like the mobile client shows difference between lifetime views and views right now. What we see here in this link in this window that I shared with you is the lifetime views. So we see them coming back in. The number on top is the number of uniques we had in the room.
Good.
Which is good. We had a lot of, I think most people that are coming into the streams are from Twitch and Substack right now. So this was a healthy transition for us, I think, for the channel. And more next time. Am I clicking the button or are you clicking the button?
You click the button.
I click the button. Ciao, everybody. See you next week.
See you. Bye.